Hi and welcome back to MRTV. Welcome back to this live stream to the PSVR 2 review marathon. Yes, the anticipation is super high. It couldn't get higher. Only a couple of days before we all get the PSVR 2. What is the best thing to spend this time with? Well, we can all watch PSVR 2 reviews. And that is exactly what we're going to do in this stream. I've lined up all of the reviews that are out there. The Verge, Digital Foundry, Gamespot, Norm from Tested, IGN, Mike from Virtual Reality Oasis, and we go all going to watch them together, and I am going to react to them because I also haven't watched them yet. So, unfortunately, I cannot bring you my own MRTV review because my review unit is late. Where there were some problems with the NDA. I'm currently here in Taiwan, so Sony wasn't sure which NDA to give me, right? So, yep, I'm simply going to get it next week. Unfortunate, but I'm a very positive guy. So the next best thing to do is react to all the other videos, and that is exactly what we're going to do now. So we already know that the device seems to be really nice and good, right? So that's why we have this high anticipation. And yeah, let's find out what the reviewers say. And I'm still excited about some stuff. I still want to know, how about the lenses? Are they good enough? Is it a problem? How about the sweet spot? Is it big enough? And yeah, also I want to know, how about live streaming? Can we read the chat? Yeah, let's find out together. And hello there. Hi Tasmania, hi Perplexa, hello everyone. So yeah, let's simply do this review marathon and let's check it out together. For all of you out there who don't know this channel yet, well, this is MRTV. I'm reviewing all the VR hardware, currently reviewing some exciting stuff, like for example the Pimax Crystal. It is very close there. I should have brought it actually, but yeah, in another stream. So simply do subscribe to the channel if you want to see more about VR. But you know what? Let us simply do this now. Let's watch those reviews, and I am simply going to react to them. And you know what we're going to start with? We're going to start with The Verge. Let's start with The Verge, and let's see what they think about the PSVR 2. Let's do this.
The past couple years have seen a lot of virtual reality companies pivot to the metaverse, and today we aren't going to talk about any of that.
Exactly, because we're going to talk
Later
about
this
PSVR
month,
2.
Sony is releasing its PlayStation VR 2 headset, a follow-up to the first PSVR from 2016. The PSVR 2 is the first VR system we've reviewed for a while that's pitched as almost entirely a gaming device. If you want a plug-and-play headset that supports graphically intensive virtual worlds with cutting-edge features like eye tracking and something called Face Rumble, there's not really anything quite like it. But at launch, we're still waiting for Sony to take advantage of what it's got.
Okay.
Sony's original PSVR was an odd gamble. The gaming giant was going up against the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, a pair of expensive high-end VR headsets that often required buying a whole new PC. Its strategy was to go low where they went high. The PSVR paired a just good enough headset with a lot of hardware Sony already made, like the PlayStation camera and the Move controllers. It plugged into the PlayStation 4, a console lots of people already owned. Its promise was in its relative accessibility, an ecosystem backed by a major publisher, and the fact that it was surprisingly comfortable. The PSVR 2 is a very different device. It's a completely new package of hardware built for the PlayStation 5, launching February 22nd. It includes custom-designed motion controllers, head-mounted inside-out tracking cameras, and internal eye-tracking cameras, a feature that's not yet standard on all VR headsets. It has a vivid OLED screen with a 110-degree field of view and 2000 by 2040 pixels per eye, and a 90 or 120 Hz.
So sometimes I might stop it to give you some thoughts. So this is now The Verge, which is mainstream, right? So the people who watch The Verge, they have no idea about VR like us. So yeah, let's see what they think. Interesting.
refresh rate. And at $549 plus the cost of a PS5, it costs a lot more than the standalone Meta Quest 2, its biggest competitor in the field of VR games. Here at The Verge, we've had 3 people checking out the PSVR 2. Me, senior editor Tom Warren, and senior editor Sean Hollister. Our experience so far is that the headset gets a lot of things right, but that we're still figuring out how much Sony will give people to do with it. Sony's first headset required setting up a complicated cable box and an external tracking camera, as well as deciding whether you were going to buy its optional Move Motion controllers. There's none of that with this headset. When you unbox the PSVR 2, you'll get a headset with 4 built-in front-facing tracking cameras
I've lowered
and a single
the video
USB-C
a bit.
cable
Is it
that
better
you plug
now?
into the PS5.
Can you hear me better now?
The setup process requires starting on a TV or monitor and then switching over to the headset, but other than that, it's nicely seamless. At this point, better than the experience on Meta's Quest, thanks to a feature that maps your walls and automatically suggests a play space instead of making you draw one out. Sony is apparently one of the only headset makers in the world that thinks you might want to play a video game without everyone in a 10-foot radius hearing you shoot zombies, so the headset comes with a set of snap-on earbuds instead of the current convention of little speakers near your ears. That can introduce problems if the buds don't fit you, but there's a standard 3.5mm headphone jack if you want to substitute your own headphones. The Sense controllers use a layout roughly similar to Meta's touch controllers. Each hand gets 2 triggers, 2 face buttons, an analog stick, a menu button,
It looks so
and
good,
a PlayStation
right?
button.
It looks beautiful.
It goes without
I really
saying
like
that
the
they're
controllers.
vastly superior
I
to
want
the
them.
13-year-old PlayStation Move, but they also feel a little more solid than Meta's controllers. They charge over USB-C like the PlayStation 5 controller, and we got 5 to 6 hours of playtime between charges. Not as long as controllers powered by AA batteries, but not bad for a VR gaming session. Also, like the PSVR, some games can still use a standard gamepad. We found a few pain points in our time with the PSVR 2. The headset's easy to put on, just like its predecessor, and it's actually lighter than the original PSVR at 560 grams compared to 600.
Okay, it's lighter than the original.
But although it's
nice.
relatively comfortable, it's not as dramatically uniquely good as the PSVR seemed back in 2016. Its tracking generally performed well, and it's way, way better than the original PSVR, but we occasionally saw issues like controllers drifting slightly. The screen looks great when it's perfectly in focus, but we all had to keep adjusting our headsets to hit that sweet spot. And most of all, that wire. Meta and HTC have sold me on wireless headsets, and although Sony's made that cable as easy to use as possible, it still literally trips me up. But Sony has laid the foundations for a solid VR experience. It's planning to launch around 30 PSVR 2 games in February and March, and it says it's got over 100 in development. One of its early flagships is Horizon Call of the Mountain, a spin-off of Guerrilla Games' robot dinosaur fighting simulator, Horizon Forbidden West. But the launch lineup features several re-releases of familiar VR titles like Pistol Whip and Pavlov VR, or VR modes for non-VR games like Resident Evil Village, and we got access to a tiny fraction of that lineup. So we're still waiting to see how its overall ecosystem pans out. How do the games we did check out feel? I'll let Tom take you through it.
Okay,
I spent most of my time in Horizon Call of the Mountain. It's the PSVR 2's flagship title, and while it starts off slow like a kind of Disney-like ride in a boat where you're appreciating all the beautiful scenery around you, it soon moves into combat and climbing. And I think this is where it really shows off the haptic system and just what this headset is capable of. There's a high amount of detail in the plants and the trees that surround you in the early stages, and everything looks really well lit. There's even a bit at the beginning where a tall neck steps over your boat and you're just free to sit there and splash your hands in the water. Just check out these ants chilling out on a rock next to exactly where I'm climbing. This level of detail I think really helps with the immersiveness in VR, but I didn't always feel fully immersed when I was traversing rocks or going across wooden beams. And I think a lot of this was down to the PSVR 2's hand tracking that didn't always place my hands down correctly. I also noticed some occasional issues with tracking during the bow and arrow combat, and even times when a warning would pop up about bright lights. Still,
okay, let me stop that for a moment. Okay, so they say the tracking has some problems. Let's keep on watching.
I think Horizon does a good job of showing why the PSVR 2 headset needs to be tethered to the PS5. We're still in the very early stages of this new VR headset, and I think we need to see a bunch more games to really understand exactly how the PS5 is pushing this hardware, and to see some more flagship titles really take advantage of Sony's powerful console to really make the PSVR 2 headset shine. I tried connecting the PSVR 2 headset directly into a USB-C port on an AMD graphics card. Now, Windows picked it up as a second screen and limited the resolution to 1080p, but Steam VR just kept asking me to plug in my VR headset as it couldn't recognize the PSVR 2. Now, someone might just get this all working eventually, but there's no official support from Sony just yet, and no real sign that the company will support PCs in the future. I think that's really disappointing because at $549, this would be a really interesting alternative for PC gamers looking at VR headsets.
Sony is trying some...
Okay, that is kind of interesting here, that they actually say that, okay, it would be an amazing PC VR headset. Obviously it would, but that doesn't make sense for Sony, right? Because they need to sell their games. So why would they make this a Steam VR headset? I know I want it and you want it too, of course, but it makes zero sense to Sony to let people just buy it and then buy the games on Steam VR, right? So no, The Verge, no. I get it, but it doesn't make sense. Let's keep on watching.
Some interesting extra features. I mentioned face rumble a while back, and it's exactly what you might guess. A vibration that shakes the face mask on your headset. Face rumble is a theoretically cool idea, but it can be distracting when it's harsh, although fortunately you can turn it off. And when it's gentler, I kinda tuned it out, which might mean it's a really intuitive, seamless part of the VR experience, or it might just not do much for me yet. What Sony has sold me on is eye tracking in games. It's easy for eye tracking to feel either gimmicky or ignorable, but Horizon uses it in subtle, very natural feeling ways. When you're in a conversation with a character, for instance, you can look at a dialogue option to select it instead of turning your controller's analog stick. Eye tracking is also supposed to enable foveated rendering, which lets games render at a higher resolution right where you're looking, but it's harder to see the effects of that so far. Eye tracking isn't the kind of thing you should buy a headset just to experience,
it's harder to see
but it
the
opens
effect.
up new options for developers.
That is kind of funny. It's hard to see the effect. It should be, you should not see the effects of this foveated rendering at all, right? You should just see that, okay, everything looks beautiful. Yep.
And makes the PSVR 2 feel just a little fancier. The headset isn't just a VR gaming device. Sony also has something called cinematic mode. I'll let Sean talk you through it.
If you're looking at that $549 price tag and thinking it's not quite worth it, here's one thing that might help: cinematic mode. I am currently looking at a gigantic virtual flat
interesting
screen
that they're
television
trying to sell
I can
that
use for
to normal
anything
people.
else I do on PS5, including
Trying to
PS5
find some reasons
games,
to buy it.
PS4 games, Blu-rays, Netflix streaming, and I think it could actually be useful for somebody who doesn't have room for a big TV in their house. You can even kick back, lie down, point the virtual screen up at the ceiling, and though you have to get fancy with pillows because the PlayStation VR's adjustment tile leaves quite a lump under your head. Mind you, it's not perfect. It's only 1080p resolution in this mode, and between that and the graininess of trying to look through VR lenses, I found that PS4 games like the original Horizon Zero Dawn were a little bit too muddy for me to want to play. But PS5 games like Returnal work pretty well, and so do Blu-rays and streaming apps. Though I did run into one issue when I tried to play HDR on a 4K Blu-ray. It threw me some error messages.
If you came here wondering, is the PSVR 2 better than the PSVR? Yes, it definitely is. If you're wondering, should I buy a PSVR 2? That's a little more complicated. The PSVR 2 catalog overlaps with the Quest's and PC VRs, and it's probably gonna be smaller than either of those for a while, particularly because it's not backwards compatible with original PSVR games. You're in Sony's lockdown console ecosystem, so you can't check out new experimental projects like you can with PC or Quest sideloading. And VR is still a new experimental medium. And okay, I said we weren't gonna talk about the metaverse, but some people are using VR headsets for social spaces like VR chat. And those can be slow to come to consoles like the PS5 if they show up at all. That might change if you can get the PSVR 2 to work with the PC later, but out of the box, the system probably won't have the flexibility a lot of other options do. But if you want easy access to great-looking games, the PSVR 2 is in a uniquely good position to deliver it. The Quest 2 is an excellent mid-range gaming machine that's fighting limited computing power. The Quest Pro has advanced features like eye tracking, but it's aimed at professionals. Valve set a solid bar for PC VR with the Index, but that was almost 4 years ago. And we still don't know how some newer Steam VR options like the big screen Beyond will perform. So if Sony brings a lot of PC VR games to the platform, its position will get even stronger. Mainly it's code for they need to bring Alex to it. Half-Life Alyx is so good. Sony isn't trying to reinvent the computer with the PSVR 2. But it's made something that feels worthy of being called a next-generation headset, if it can back it up with games to match. What PS5 game do you want to see get a VR mode? My final answer is the Dead Space remake. I've played that thing like 4 times. I will play it again.
Okay, that is The Verge. Yeah, so overall positive, like trying to sell it to the normal people out there, right? Like we are not so normal, right? We are like geeks. So yeah, okay. And they're wondering why this is not a PC VR headset. So yeah, of course, it would be amazing. There's no question about it. It would be amazing if this would work as a PC VR headset. But I understand Sony that it doesn't make sense for them to subsidize this headset, and then people spend their dollars on Steam VR. So I get it. I want it, of course, but I get it that it's not going to become a PC VR headset. Yep. Okay. So that was made for normal people. Now let's watch a video that is more targeted towards us, right? So let's have a look at what Mike from the Virtual Reality Oasis thinks. So let me load up his video, and then let us watch it together. Let's react to it. So let me just find it. And here we go. Let's watch it together.
Welcome to the Oasis, my name is Mike, and today is finally the day that I can give you my full review on the PSVR 2. Having had early access to the headset thanks to PlayStation, I've been playing with it every day over the past week, and I feel like I've got enough time in the headset now to give you all the details on the good.
Yeah, also from MRTV, thanks to PlayStation for sending it to me next week.
And the bad about this headset. I will preface this review though by saying playing games on this thing has given me the most joy and excitement for VR in a long time.
Here we
I'm
go!
just so happy
That's
that we're
what we
finally
hear.
getting back to what matters in VR, and that's playing some awesome and incredibly immersive games. I hope you find this review useful, and without further ado, let's dive in. Now, I won't bore you with the unboxing as I've covered that on the channel already, so I'll continue where I left off, which is with the setup. As you can see here, we've come a long way from the original PSVR, which had chunky cables, connections near your ankles, breakout boxes, and cameras, all of which have been reduced to a single USB-C cable, which just simply plugs into the front of the PS5. The cable connected to the PSVR 2 is 4.5 meters in length, and I found that during my testing you can extend it to an additional 1 meter without any problems. But any cable length beyond 1 meter would either cause tracking issues or simply wouldn't work in my testing. I've added a link to the extension cable I've been using in the description down below if you're interested. Now, the first time you connect the PSVR 2 to the PS5 console, it automatically recognizes it and runs through the setup process step by step, which is incredibly easy to follow, even if this is your very first VR headset. When you put the PSVR 2 on for the very first time, it cleverly uses the built-in eye tracking to work out the position of your eyes, and it guides you to adjust the dial at the top so your eyes are centered exactly in the middle of the lenses. While I think this is fantastic for newcomers, as someone who knows my exact IPD measurement from years of using VR headsets, I would have also liked to have seen the exact IPD number displayed in this menu. Also, one other slight nitpick here is that once the process is complete, if you happen to move the dial again, it doesn't automatically return you to this screen, so you could accidentally knock it out of calibration without knowing, and this would cause unwanted eye strain when playing VR games. Maybe this is something Sony could consider patching in a future update. In the next step of the setup, the headset automatically enables the pass-through mode, so you can pick up your Sense controllers. I will say now that I love these controllers, but they're almost impossible to put on correctly without the pass-through mode enabled. But thankfully, you can do this just with the touch of a button on the underside of the headset at any time to enable it. While the pass-through mode is in grainy black and white, it is much sharper than the Quest 2's black and white pass-through mode. Next up is the eye tracking calibration, where you simply follow a dot around the display with your eyes. Once complete, it's so cool to see your eyes moving around in real time, and it even shows you when you blink. Eye tracking in VR does feel like having some kind of superpower, and some devs have cleverly used this feature in some of their games already, which I'll touch on a little bit later on in the video. The next step in the process is to move your head around and scan your play area, so the headset can warn you if you get too close to objects whilst playing. It looks so cool with these blue geometric shapes, and its radar-like pulses working its way through your room. Finally, you then just trace the boundaries of your play space and you're all done. Since this initial setup, I've been pleasantly surprised that the system has remembered the layout of my room each time I've turned the headset on, and I've not had to go through the process again yet. My only gripe with this setup process is that when it ends, it boots you to the PlayStation Home, which is just a flat floating main menu screen. This would have been the perfect opportunity for PlayStation to introduce you to some simple VR gameplay mechanics. And to Meta's credit, they did an excellent job with this with the Quest 2 by putting the user straight into a short demo experience. Again, maybe this is something Sony could consider adding in the future, but overall, two thumbs up for the setup process. So now I want to get into a bit more technical detail and talk about the display and lenses. The PSVR 2 features two OLED HDR panels, offering a resolution of 2000 by 2040 pixels per eye. This is a vast improvement over the original PSVR and a small increase over most current-gen consumer VR headsets. Now, due to the OLED HDR panels, you get lovely, rich, vibrant colors. And this is highlighted in Horizon Call of the Mountain, which I had the pleasure of playing early. The scale of everything is breathtaking, the vistas look absolutely stunning, the world pops with color, and honestly, it's one of the best looking VR games I've ever played. In contrast, the OLED panels also provide deep black levels, which is highlighted in darker games like The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Retribution, for example.
Perfect for me as a horror game lover.
It really is pitch black in the headset, which you just don't get in headsets using LCD panels, as they tend to look a little bit washed out and grey in comparison. However, there is a trade-off here. The pixel arrangement in OLED panels aren't quite as tight as LCDs, which means you do get some screen door effect with the PSVR 2. It's by no means a deal breaker, more of a necessary trade-off. It is there if you're looking for it.
Wait. So this is not RGB stripe like the original? Because the original had a very low resolution, right? But it had RGB stripe OLED, so therefore actually you wouldn't see so much screen door effect. So honestly, I would be surprised if this is not RGB stripe. Please do let me know in the comment section here. This is not RGB stripe OLED? I would be very surprised.
For it, but it's certainly not enough to cause a distraction. The field of view of the headset is around 110 degrees, which is perfectly fine, and while I felt the horizontal field of view was similar to my modded Quest 2, the vertical field of view felt a bit larger, but this will vary from user to user depending on how close you move the lenses towards your eyes. The PSVR 2 panel refresh rate is 90Hz or up to 120Hz. 120Hz is pretty cool, but it also serves as a bit of a problem. You see, it sometimes achieves this refresh rate by running the display at 60Hz and using reprojection to essentially double the frame rate. This means in games like Horizon, when you use smooth turning, you'll see a...
Nope. It doesn't run at 60Hz. It does run at 120Hz, but we just see 60 frames per second. Right? The PS5 would only generate 60 frames per second, but we see 120 Hz.
A ghosted-like image in the movement, which is undesirable. I'm normally a smooth turner in VR games, but I actually reverted to snap turning in Horizon due to this issue. Again, it's not a deal breaker, but it's simply a trade-off that PSVR 2 users will have to accept. And finally, I want to talk about the lenses. The PSVR 2 uses Fresnel lenses instead of what is becoming the new industry favorite in pancake lenses. This means that due to the concentric rings in the Fresnel lenses, you do get a bit of glare in contrasting scenes. Another slight issue with the PSVR 2 lenses is that it does have a pretty small sweet spot where the clarity is at its best, meaning that it will take a bit of up and down adjustment to get it just right when you first put it on, but thankfully due to the ergonomics of the head strap, the headset doesn't tend to move around much after you've got it in place, which is welcome. Now, it might sound like there's a few negatives here, but I'm really looking at this from an experienced VR user's perspective. New users will likely not even notice some of the things I'm talking about here, and to be honest, once you're fully immersed in an amazing game like Horizon or Switchback VR, you quickly forget about all these issues and you just enjoy the awesome VR experience. Moving on to a more positive note, the built-in audio solution with the earbuds actually surprised me. I'm not normally a fan of earbuds, but the convenience of having them attached to the headset was really nice, and the audio quality produced by the PS5's Tempest 3D audio sounded fantastic in everything that I played.
Okay,
there
cool.
are
That's good to
other
hear.
audio solutions
That is
available, like the official Pulse headphones and the SteelSeries 7P headphones that both work great with the PSVR 2 in my testing if you really dislike the earbuds. I'll add links to them in the description down below, but I'll cover them in more detail in a future video.
Yeah. So I will also check out other headphones, of course. But honestly, I'm not a big fan of having like two headsets, as in wearing the device and then wearing something on top of it. Yeah, I just think it's inconvenient. I don't like it. What do you think? Write it in the chat section. Thank you. Let's keep on watching it.
One fun experiment I want to mention before I forget is that I did try connecting the PSVR 2 to my PC to see if anything would happen. It did trigger a little notification window, but it wasn't recognized by the PC or Steam as a VR headset, and even the headset itself wouldn't turn on. So I would say PC VR support is going to be highly unlikely unless someone really smart in the modding community is able to figure this one out. Now let's talk about the new Sense controllers.
Yes,
straight away, they're a huge improvement over the original PSVR's antique Move controllers, and even an upgrade in some ways over all current-gen VR controllers. This is due to two main reasons: the adaptive triggers and the advanced haptics. I have to say, it wasn't until I played Switchback VR that I really noticed the precision of the haptics. When turning the controllers whilst holding the guns, it almost felt like something was rolling around inside the controller. And the only way I can really describe this feeling was that it was similar to the sensation of the HD rumble in the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. But it is really the adaptive triggers that steals the show for me. Having each gun in-game feel completely different to fire, with varying levels of tension provided on the triggers, is something that I want to see in all future VR controllers from here on out. Controller tracking was solid for the most part, but as these controllers are tracked by the headset itself, once they go outside of the tracking range directly in front of the headset, they do lose tracking momentarily and get stuck in place until they're back in line of sight of the cameras. I had this happen a handful of times when using the bow in Horizon during my 8-hour playthrough from start to finish, but for the most part they performed just fine. As I mentioned in my unboxing video, the Sense controllers feature capacitive touch sensors, which offer hand presence in VR even when your fingers are just resting on the buttons without
these
actually
controllers
pushing them.
are
This
so
feature
good.
can be found in the face buttons, the thumbsticks, the grip buttons, and the triggers, which all adds to better hand presence in VR games.
Oh my
One
goodness.
gripe-
These controllers are so good. Let me just pause Mike's video here. Yeah, so other controllers, they sell for like $300. Only the controllers, right? Only the controllers. And these controllers, they look good. They have everything we want, especially that we have HD Rumble. We have that adaptive triggers with force feedback. And it's like the whole thing costs $550, including the OLED headset. So no, this is not expensive. So dear normal people outside there, who are outside of this bubble, $550 is not expensive for what you're getting. So
is that the battery in these controllers tends to last between 4 to 5 hours of use before needing to be recharged. This is a stark contrast to the Quest 2's controller battery life, which uses a single AA battery, which seems to last for weeks on end. Charging the Sense controllers is also a bit of a pain. As I mentioned in my unboxing video, you only get one USB-C charging cable included in the box. A splitter cable would have been nice, but it seems the official charging dock is definitely the way to go. Although I don't have one here yet, I did personally pre-order one, and it seems like an essential accessory in my opinion. Overall though, the controllers do feel really nice in the hands, and it's great to see that we're finally getting controller parity across systems, which is going to make porting games across multiple VR platforms much easier for developers in the future. Another really cool feature with the PSVR 2 that's not really been widely reported on is that it can actually be used as a TV replacement in cinematic mode. Now this allows you to watch video content or play any flat game from your game library in 1080p HDR on a huge virtual cinema screen in the headset. While you do need a TV for the PSVR 2's initial setup, once that's done, you could effectively use the console with just the headset attached as a TV replacement, which is pretty cool. And this brings me nicely onto comfort and ergonomics. Personally, I found the PSVR 2 to be comfortable to wear for hours at a time. I didn't have any issues with headaches like I did with the Quest Pro, despite it being a very similar head strap design, and I put this down to the PSVR 2 being a lot lighter. One bone of contention amongst the VR community with the PSVR 2 is the cable, but I have to say, throughout all my time with it, it didn't really bother me at all. One thing to add here is that during a recent teardown video, Sony showed that the PlayStation cable could potentially be replaced if damaged. However, it might entail replacing the whole rear strap section, so make sure you keep your pets and kids away from this cable if possible. Sony also confirmed during this teardown video that the headset features an internal fan to keep the unit cool around the face to prevent fogging of the lenses, which I have to say worked great, and I didn't notice any fan noise whatsoever. The silicone rubber material used in the padding at the front and the back of the head strap is soft and comfortable, and it seems to work perfectly with my bold little head. And what I like about it is that once it's locked into place, the headset doesn't seem to move around, so you're not constantly having to readjust the fit. Of course, behind this front padding sits a single rumble motor for the headset's haptics, which, like I mentioned before, is often used to highlight key moments in games, and it does a great job of making you feel more connected to the VR experience. My only concern around comfort is that due to my IPD being around 61mm and the lenses being quite chunky due to the eye tracking modules, the lenses tend to rest slightly on the sides of my nose. Now I can relieve this slight pressure by pushing the eye relief out a little bit, but that would mean that I would sacrifice some field of view, which in all my testing I just didn't want to do. It's something I'm still trying to solve, but it's certainly not stopping me from enjoying the headset for long periods of time. The gasket surrounding the lenses is really nice. It's very soft, flexible material that contours to your face without applying any pressure, and it does an excellent job of eliminating any external light leaking into the headset. Another thing to mention here is that during all of my testing, I wore glasses throughout without any issues whatsoever. I would prefer to invest in some prescription lens inserts in the future, however, I'm just not sure if that's going to be possible due to the eye tracking modules surrounding the lenses. While on the subject of eye tracking, it's a standout feature of the PSVR 2, which just isn't common in current-gen consumer VR headsets. Some of the best use cases of eye tracking that I've tried so far are like being able to use your eyes to navigate the menus in Horizon. They also actually use eye tracking to give you an aim assist in-game, which is turned on by default. I did wonder why all of a sudden I had Hawkeye-like aiming abilities, but it was just the eye tracking giving me a helping hand. And this is what I meant earlier when I said that the eye tracking sometimes feels like it gives you superpowers. And finally, probably my favorite use of eye tracking so far is a scene that I played in Switchback VR when they tell you not to blink. Every time you blink, these creepy mannequins move around, making it much harder to keep your eyes open.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
absolutely horrific, but so awesome at the same time.
Terrible.
This is so cool, and it's just the beginning, and I can't wait to see what more developers do with this next level tech in the future. And whilst on the subject of eye tracking, one feature that's really difficult to cover in this review is the dynamic foveated rendering. As it's designed to work without you even noticing it's working, it's almost impossible for me to tell that it's enabled in the games that I've been playing, and PlayStation haven't shared what games at launch are using this feature to increase game performance. So to round up this review, the big question is the PSVR 2 worth the hype, and would I recommend buying one?
Yes!
Absolutely. Despite some flaws, the PSVR 2 is a very capable VR headset that takes full advantage of the power of the PS5 to provide a level of VR quality and detail that's previously only been reserved for high-end gaming PCs. And in some instances, the PSVR 2 may even surpass this quality due to the advantage of dynamic foveated rendering and games being highly optimized specifically for the PS5 hardware. Horizon Call of the Mountain is a great example of this, and it's without doubt one of the best looking VR games I've ever played, and it stands proudly alongside Half-Life Alyx as some of the best content VR has to offer right now.
Let's do this.
And while the hardware is good, it's these games that excite me the most. As we all know, content is king, and PlayStation are coming out the gate strong with their launch lineup with Horizon, Resident Evil Village, and Gran Turismo 7, alongside some wonderful indie titles. If PlayStation can keep up the momentum with quality releases throughout the year, alongside some fun indie titles, I have no doubt PSVR 2 will be the headset of choice for gamers looking for the best quality VR content available. So that is my PSVR 2 review.
Thank you.
Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's been so much fun playing with this headset over the past week, and it's got me really excited for VR content coming soon. I mean, I'm absolutely buzzing to play Gran Turismo in this thing next week, and I just can't wait to play the upcoming shooter Firewall Ultra when it eventually drops later on this year. Now, I appreciate there was a lot to talk about in this video, so if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found some of the information I provided was useful. If you have any questions, anything I may have missed in the video, feel free to put your questions in the comments down below, and I'll do my very best to answer as many questions as I can. If you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, leave a cheeky little like, make sure you subscribe for my future PSVR 2 content. As always, I'll see you all on the next one.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Yeah, cool. You saw that contrast between The Verge and Mike, like Mike being one of us, right? VR enthusiasts, and The Verge. So The Verge said, like, yeah, not really many games. Yeah, it's okay. Probably this cinematic mode is a good reason to buy it. And like Mike, yes, amazing lineup. And I agree, like, GD7 is there. The switchback looks so good. Firewall Ultra coming out. Horizon, obviously, right? So yeah, I'm definitely, obviously, with Mike here. So that is so funny. That's so funny to see. It's good that we do this marathon. It's really good that we do this PSVR 2 review marathon, because we're probably going to learn something from each of the reviews. So what I learned now from this review is that the battery of the controllers are only 4 to 5 hours. Now, that is truly like not so long, right? I've seen myself in a 6-hour VR marathon, so that is a bit unfortunate. Probably you do have to have some two power banks in your pockets for these kind of situations, and then you just put them in and then you're good to go again. But, well, obviously, because you have these cool adaptive triggers with force feedback, it makes sense that they would use more energy, right? Yep, okay, but that is something that I can live with, right? We will get over that. Okay, dear 180 people, I really hope that you enjoy this PSVR review marathon so far. If you do it so far, why don't you give it a thumbs up right now? And, well, if you have not yet subscribed to MRTV, do that now, because we'll keep you up to date about everything VR. So now let's watch the next one. And now, why don't we have a look at IGN? I really like IGN. Like, I grew up with IGN, like reading all their reviews, all their video game reviews. And actually, IGN was also like a little inspiration for me to start MRTV, because I felt like, hey, why is there no VR on IGN? You know what? Let's make it myself. And here we are with MRTV. I'm so happy about it. So you know what? Let's do it. Let's watch the IGN review. Let me put that up. And let's enjoy, hopefully, the IGN review. So let me find it. Here it is. And here we go. Oh, it's a good start already. Like, you can tell. Okay, high quality review. They made B-roll.
It's a thrill when we get to say this about a new piece of gaming hardware. The PlayStation VR 2 is a true generational leap that makes the old one look like a piece of junk. It's not exactly cheap, but for $549.99, you get a high-end headset with a 4K HDR-enabled OLED screen, a 110-degree field of view, built-in tracking cameras and eye tracking, plus 2 of its slick Sense controllers with the excellent adaptive triggers and haptic feedback Sony
Okay,
introduced
yes.
to the PlayStation 5's DualSense controller. The catch is that it requires you to be connected to a PS5 by a single USB cable, but that means it's much more powerful when it comes to delivering fantastic graphics than a self-contained headset like the MetaQuest 2. With all of that, including a few features you don't see on even more expensive PC VR sets like Valve's Index and HP's Reverb G2, the PlayStation VR 2 has vaulted console VR into the lead in just about every category except available games.
Okay. So, they seem to like it,
It's headed towards us.
but they also think there's no games. Okay, let's see.
The PlayStation VR 2 is an immediate improvement over its predecessor in every way, but the physical design is actually pretty similar. Like its forebearer, it's got a clean black and white look that matches your PS5, and it's built around an adjustable head strap that's separated from the VR display itself, which does a great job of comfortably accommodating a wide range of head shapes and lets the weight of the screen rest on the top of your head rather than on your face. The one-stop adjustment mechanism on the back of the head strap remains an excellent way to dial in a perfect fit. It's nice to see the PSVR 2 has a slider on the top left side of the lens casing to quickly adjust the headset's interpupillary distance, or IPD, and it's especially neat that the internal camera quickly measures the distance between your eyes during setup. Other than that, Sony has kept the headset itself simple, with just two buttons at the bottom of the display. The center button turns the headset on and off, and the other instantly activates pass-through mode, letting you see the real world around you in black and white without taking off the headset. It's slightly disappointing there are no physical buttons to adjust the volume.
Yeah, right.
Compared to the original PSVR,
I must
setup
say,
is a breeze.
I must say I agree to this, that there is no actual volume rockers. It's a bit sad, I think. It's a small issue, honestly, right? But I'm not the guy to wear the other headphones over the thing to adjust it there, so I would have preferred to have volume rockers there.
The PSVR 2 has a single USB-C cable you plug into your PS5 and you're done. After that, you'll need to install a firmware update and then quickly calibrate your controllers, eye tracking, and lens spacing, and the 4 tracking cameras will capture a scan of your room. It is extremely cool to see it accurately map out the geometry of a room. And
yeah, that's nice.
everything
Again,
in
that's
it,
really
including
nice.
furniture, pets, even leftovers on your coffee table. Clean up your coffee table. Once you carve out a play area, the PSVR 2's guardian walls rise out of the ground, clearly marking which parts of your room are safe to walk around in.
Okay, first time we see the Guardian here. Okay, nice.
If you've only
I
ever
wanna
used
see
the
it.
PSVR's
I
Move
wanna see
controllers,
it.
the moment you grab onto the included pair of Sense controllers is a revelation. The layout of their clicky face buttons and analog sticks will feel familiar to anyone who has played room-scale VR in the last several years, but they step things up with the addition of haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. The analog sticks are half the size of the DualSenses, but remain tactile, allowing almost the same degree of precision as a D-pad when playing a game of Tetris Effect Connected, which notoriously difficult to play on Quest 2's default touch controllers. As we see in games like Horizon Call of the
Guys, I have to tell you one more thing. It's about the grip control, the grip buttons. So a good friend of mine, he's called Mo, is a German VR YouTuber. He also got the PlayStation VR 2, and he said that the grip button is actually hard to press. It's not so easy to use the grip button, especially if you're supposed to hold something over a long time. So that is just something that I would want to throw into here, what the German reviewer said. So let's find out once we get them. Yeah, just letting you know my information here.
of the Mountain in Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, you can feel the power of a virtual weapon through the resistance of the adaptive triggers, like when you're shooting a blaster or drawing a bowstring. Haptic feedback improves this effect by simulating certain forces, textures, and noises through subtle vibrations, but it also makes its way into enhancing calmer and more subtle interactions, such as the flow of water on your kayak paddle in Kayak VR.
Can't wait for that. I can't wait
Each
for
button
that.
features capacitive touch that can tell if your fingers are on it or not, which allows you to make reasonably accurate gestures with your hands. It's not quite as sophisticated as the finger tracking on the Valve Index controllers, though, so you're limited to specific gestures like giving a thumbs up or pointing with your finger. Just like the DualSense, battery life is a concern here. With all that vibrating and resisting, a full charge only lasts around 4 to 5 hours. That's
Okay,
a long
same here,
time for
4
a
to
session
5
of VR
hours.
gaming, but the fact that you can't swap out batteries for a fresh pair means you might get cut short if you forget to plug them in. Likewise, the Sense controller's ring design may take some getting used to. It can be difficult to figure out where your hands are supposed to go by touch, but they're comfortable to hold once you get a grip. In contrast to the OLED panel included in the original PSVR, the PSVR2's 4K HDR OLED panel offers richer colors and up to a 120 Hz refresh rate, making even less visually detailed games come to life. The screen door effect was never an issue on the PSVR, and it isn't here either, but with proper IPD calibration, you can now tactically eliminate glare as well. The fact you're encompassed by 110 degrees of scenery at all times makes VR all the more lifelike. That's 10 degrees wider than the original PSVR, and it's a significant difference in how much of the world around you can see. Still a bit like wearing a scuba mask, but it's a bigger, less claustrophobic scuba mask.
Okay, yeah, good to hear that FOV seems to be a bit better.
Access to the PS5's
Nice.
graphical horsepower allows its games to have vast draw distances, much like their flat screen counterparts, and there's no better demonstration of this than in Horizon Call of the Mountain.
Okay, I mean, I'm kind of
You see
hyped
fully
up for this
simulated
game. Are
mechanical
you?
creatures running
Give
around
it a
across
thumbs
the map,
up here now.
contrasted against cascading waterfalls and picturesque mountaintops, reflecting light off into the distance. Similarly, Cities VR Enhanced Edition allows you to build urban sprawls that truly come alive from a distance. And now you can see all of it all at once. On top of that, PSVR 2 has a fancy new trick called foveated rendering, which means its built-in IR camera tracks the movement of your eyes and uses that information to improve efficiency. Because it knows exactly what you're focused on, it can put all its processing power into making that area super detailed, while everything else can be dialed down to conserve resources. It's also neat that certain games can now allow you to select menu options with your eyes or toggle interactions just by glancing at a character. The only other headset available right now that can do this is the MetaQuest Pro, and that'll cost you $1,500. Another nice touch you don't see on other popular VR sets is built-in headset vibration, which adds a new layer of immersion to gameplay when implemented at the right moment. Roving dinosaurs in Jurassic World Aftermath and explosions in Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge both generate haptic vibrations that pulse through the headset, coinciding with the distance, position, and intensity of the sounds they produce. It can bring the cinematic details out of sound design in games that implement it skillfully, but it needs proper 3D audio to really work as intended, which means the disappointing packed-in earbuds don't cut it quite as well as something like Sony's own Pulse 3D wireless headphone.
Interesting, right? So Mike totally thought those in-ears are fantastic, and IGN like, no, don't go for them. You cannot go for them. Let's keep on watching.
Unfortunately, you're out of luck if you're hoping any of this will work with your existing PSVR game catalog. Because of how big an improvement it is, PSVR 2 represents a clean slate for PlayStation's entire VR library. So even if you've spent hundreds of dollars on PSVR games that made the list of PSVR 2 games in the launch window, you have to buy them again. And considering that there just aren't a ton of new games announced yet, it might be a little while before the PSVR 2 catches up to other platforms in terms of selection.
Okay, that is not entirely true, right? There are like PSVR 1 games that you don't have to buy again, right? There's like free upgrades for PSVR 2. So yeah, not entirely correct. Good that there's MRTV, IGN. Yep.
Hey, you need a drink? I need a drink. I need a couple drinks.
The PlayStation VR 2 may seem pricey, given that it costs $150 more than the base PS5 digital edition.
It's not
console you'll need
pricey.
to use it. Even so, it's such a quantum leap over the original PSVR in terms of ease of use, visual quality, and immersion that any PlayStation owner who loves VR should upgrade
Yes.
as soon as possible.
Okay,
It's 4K,
nice.
HDR, OLED
That is a
screen,
nice
and
conclusion.
Excellently
Great.
tactile sense controllers are the most obvious improvements, but plentiful quality of life changes and the raw horsepower of the PS5 set a new standard for how VR games should play and feel
A new standard.
on console.
Yes.
Like any new platform, its thin launch lineup makes its lack of backward compatibility with original PSVR a significant problem, but one that will only improve as Sony and other developers roll out new games that take advantage of the PSVR 2's unique features. For more, check out our review of the big launch game, Horizon Call of the Mountain, and for everything else, stick with IGN.
Or MRTV, since it's here now. Yeah, okay, so yeah, that was a quite good review, I thought, and I'm happy that they said like, okay, you should buy this. You know, you should if you like VR, you should absolutely get it, and it's worth it, and it's so much better than the PSVR 1, obviously, and super immersive, and he loved it. Okay, cool. Really happy about that. Probably people are going to buy it. Hopefully a lot. Okay, so did we learn something new here? Not really, right? We knew, again, battery life 4 to 5 hours for the controllers. This is a bit short, but yeah, let's keep on watching. Let's watch the next thing. Let's watch Gamespot. Also, like one of the super established video game review magazines that also I liked to read in the past. So let's check out what they have to say about the PlayStation VR 2. So let me add this. By the way, thanks for watching this PSVR 2 review marathon. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, absolutely do that now. This is a fantastic VR channel. So add source, local video, and let's have a look at what GameSpot has to say about the PSVR 2.
While the original PlayStation VR was an admirable first effort for Sony, it was also an awkward piece of hardware. It launched when consumer-focused headsets were in their nascency, which is probably why Sony could get away with a jerry-rigged chimera of old and new technology.
It was
PSVR
jerry-rigged, yes.
felt like a solution hurriedly thrown together to make the most of an emerging trend. Its successor, the PlayStation VR 2, is the opposite in almost every way. It's a thoughtfully designed piece of hardware that is powerful and delivers a user-friendly plug-and-play experience that is almost entirely frictionless. The technology powering it is modern, making it a worthy companion to the PlayStation 5, and its Sense controllers are designed specifically for gaming in VR spaces. The PSVR 2 is undoubtedly a major step forward for PlayStation's virtual reality ambitions, and it's one of the best headsets on the market. But in the ever-shifting landscape of virtual reality, its price and current value proposition leave it in an awkward position once again. Out of the box.
What? Awkward position? I cannot. No. I say no. I say that's wrong. Let's keep on watching it.
The PSVR 2 looks and feels like a premium piece of technology. The matte white on deep black PlayStation color scheme is replicated here to great effect, and the form factor swaps the sharpness of the PS5 for rounded corners and curved bands that make the whole unit pleasing to look at as well as put on and take off. The Sense controllers are similarly elegant in design, comfortably filling my hands and allowing my fingers and thumbs to rest on the buttons and triggers very naturally. The original PSVR was lauded as being the most comfortable headset on the market, and PSVR 2 can also claim that accolade, as it's even more comfortable to wear. It may feel a little heavy for those who are used to the lighter Meta Quest 2, but the weight feels well distributed, so I didn't have the neck fatigue issues that I feared may crop up during longer sessions. There are also some brilliant little product design features in the PSVR 2 that, when you hear about, don't seem like a big deal but make all the difference when using the headset on a day-to-day basis. One such example is the headphones that are included with the headset, which plug into the band and have a thin plastic body that contours around the band, so it doesn't even look like a separate piece.
Let's see what
until
he
the
thinks
ends,
about
where
it.
a small stretch of wire and in-ear headphones dangle. On either side of the band are two indents that you can push the headphones into to safely hold them in place, like little finger traps. It's easy to put the headphones in, take them out, and store them without ever removing the headset. This kind of care and consideration put into comfort extends to the more essential parts of the experience. On the front of the headset is a button that easily lets you move the lenses towards and away from the face. Another button on the back serves as a similar function for the band, which means it's very easy to slide the headset on and have it fit comfortably. The mixture of hard plastic and cushions give the PSVR 2 a sturdiness and comfort that other headsets relying on straps can't match. On the Quest 2, you need to pay extra for the comfort by buying a headband. Once the PSVR 2 headset is on, it's easy to make adjustments to find the sweet spot that works for you. A dial on the front moves the spacing of the two internal lenses so you can better align them with your eyes, while another on the back tightens the band to secure it to your head, similar to how it worked with the original. Setting up the PSVR 2 is a breeze, which is a far cry from the original headset's mess of cables, cameras and breakout boxes. This time around, it's as simple as plugging a single wire into the front of the PS5. Each Sense controller must be physically plugged into the console via the USB port, but that's just once to pair them. From there, the PS5 recognizes that a PSVR 2 has been connected and runs the software setup. Again, the process is streamlined to the point where it requires almost no interaction from the user beyond advancing tutorial prompts and informational text boxes. Since it has inside-out tracking via the 4 cameras on the headset, the PSVR 2 quickly scans and maps the room around you, which it visualizes in a cool geometric pulse, and then defines a safe play space, taking into account any nearby objects. Naturally, the optimal environment for the PSVR 2 is one which has a clear open space with the freedom to move around without bumping into things. It also needs to be a well-lit space so that the various cameras on the headset can keep track of your movement. Most people won't be able to play in perfect conditions, however. In my case, I stood between my couch and a chair positioned behind a coffee table, which amounts to about a foot of space, and my lighting came from the bay windows during the day and a bog standard light bulb at night. Despite these less than optimal conditions, I didn't have many issues while using the headset, but after the freedom of Quest 2, being tethered to the PlayStation 5 was a little annoying initially, as it is also a limiting factor on the range of movement you have. Even with being able to quickly see my surroundings, I found that
But honestly speaking, how much do we actually move around when we are in VR? No, just think about it. How much do you really move around? Like even when I'm playing Pico 4 or Quest 2 or Quest Pro, yeah, I can move around all what I want, but do we really do it? Please, do you agree with me? Say yes if you also don't walk around when you are in VR. Say no if you think like, no, I'm moving around a lot. Right? No, really, I really want to know what you think about this.
That part of my attention was always dedicated to making sure I don't get too engrossed in the game, so as not to send my console crashing to the ground by yanking on the wire. But the trade-off is being able to leverage the power of the PlayStation 5, which has a noticeable impact on how ambitious games can be. The only other hiccup with my less than ideal environment happened when the Sense controllers became inconsistent with finger tracking, resulting in strange and unexpected movements in-game. This seemed more pronounced in the evenings, when there was much less natural light. It wasn't a major problem at all. It's just a bit odd to see my virtual fingers glitching out every now and then. My favourite feature on the PSVR 2 is a little button on the underside of the headset, which pauses the game and swaps the visuals to a view of the room you're in so you can see your surroundings. It's not a crystal clear coloured video feed and is instead a weird night vision like view, but it's more than enough to safely walk around the room and pick up or put down controllers, reorient yourself, or as I did, check to see what level of bemused my cat was while watching me.
Oh, you know what? Nobody said if this is actually 3D pass-through. Nobody said it so far, right? Or did you hear in any of the reviews? Is this 3D pass-through? Or is it only like 2D? If you know that, please do let me know in the comment section.
This is one of those situations where the hardware, specifically the external cameras, is being smartly utilized to give the user a better experience. The whole process of going from taking the PSVR 2 out of the box to playing a game takes just a few minutes, and what helps significantly is the smooth integration into the PlayStation ecosystem. There's no need to make new accounts or merge them, as you've probably got an existing PlayStation account, and it leverages that. As someone that went through the ordeal of dealing with Oculus accounts, Facebook requirements, and migrations to Meta, this frictionless experience was very much appreciated. There's nothing more to setting up the PSVR than that. But where it gets complicated is the games. From the outset, there's one clear showpiece for the PSVR 2 that distinguishes itself as
Horizon?
the killer app, if you will. Horizon Call of the Mountain. As I mentioned when I previewed the game and the headset, Call of the Mountain is a reminder of how transcendent a high-quality VR experience running on powerful hardware can be. The technical specifications for the headset are out there if you want to know the nitty-gritty of the internals, but the end result of all those bells and whistles is that Horizon Call of the Mountain is a beautiful game. Easily one of the best looking VR games I've ever seen. And better still, it makes effective use of every feature the PlayStation VR 2 has to some degree.
It seems
the
like
OLED displays
we will play
and
that on
advanced
20
techniques such as
seconds, won't
foveated
we?
rendering deliver rich and vibrant visuals that render the world of Horizon with an overwhelming level of detail, without compromising performance. PSVR 2 allows players to get intimate with their environments, and the fidelity of what you see holds up under scrutiny. Oars glide through the water, trees sway in the wind, light pierces through outcroppings, and mountainsides are rough and craggy. Being able to get up close and personal with robotic dinosaurs highlight some of the superb work Guerrilla did with its creature design, and the same goes for Firesprite and its world. I previously described the feeling of being in the world of Horizon as awe-inspiring, and this sensation holds true now too. That is, for me, the enduring magic of VR. There's nothing quite like the feeling of using the Sense controllers to carefully grasp handholds to climb my way up the side of a towering structure, only to glance over my shoulder and have the virtual world momentarily override my sights and senses to make me believe in the peril that awaited me should I take one wrong step. Playing Horizon Call of the Mountain makes PSVR 2 sing, and it's a beautiful song. But for as impressive as it is, eventually I couldn't help but think about the VR experiences I had when the technology and games first became available and what they are now, and how little they've evolved. For its part, Horizon Call of the Mountain developer Firesprite has done an exceptional job of taking the tried and true gameplay ideas and mechanics that VR has to offer and executing them superbly in a AAA VR title. Call of the Mountain is virtual tourism in a fantasy world at its most engrossing. It's one of the best climbing games I've ever played. The bow and arrow combat is incredibly satisfying, and the game even has a story that fans of the Horizon series will enjoy experiencing. But at the same time, each of the components of this game exist elsewhere, in other experiences, for other devices, and I've done them before many times. That brings me to the biggest challenge that PSVR 2 faces. There's nothing that truly distinguishes it from the competition. Yes, the headset is cutting edge, and the Sense controllers with their finger tracking capabilities are both capable and comfortable, even if they're utilized in predictable ways. Outside of very limited cases, mainly Half-Life Alyx, VR games feel like they're trapped in the same small box of possibilities they came in when the Rift hit the market all those years ago. There's nothing wrong with these ideas, just as there's nothing wrong with taking existing games like Gran Turismo or Resident Evil Village and using VR to open up new ways to play them. The question then becomes, is that enough for you? And is that enough if it's all it will ever be? With a price tag of $550, the cost of the PlayStation 5 it's attached to, that's an important question to ask yourself. Especially at launch, when PSVR 2 feels more like a luxury item than a must-have gaming platform. For some, spending that money to have the latest technology is all the justification they need. But for those that are interested...
Wait. A luxury item? In order to play Horizon Call of the Mountain, like how we've seen it there, this is not luxury. This is something that you must do. You know, I want to be on that boat and put my hand into the water and feel the water flow. How can this be a luxury item? And yeah, no! Getting a bit angry here.
Interested in entering the world of virtual reality in earnest, PSVR 2 is a tough recommendation at the moment. As I said,
it's a
I
tough
enjoyed my time
recommendation.
with Horizon Call of the Mountain.
A tough recommendation? What? I'm shocked here by this.
But no other game made the same kind of impression on me. Kayak VR Mirage let me paddle around a few real-world locations during the day, night, and while a storm was happening. And although it was definitely impressive to be in realistic recreations of locations I probably won't visit in real life, these thrills were fleeting. There's only so much furious paddling I want to do in my leisure time. Cities VR let me create my own metropolitan paradise by using the Sense controllers to effortlessly lay roads, erect buildings, and micromanage the day-to-day existence of my virtual fiefdom. but the process of constructing what became my nightmare hellscape of a city felt more novel than something I want to return to over and over again. What I found myself missing was something that charmed me in the way that Astrobot did when I turned on my PS5 for the first time, or a game that showed me something new and only possible in a virtual reality video game experience. You might say that's a lot to ask of PlayStation designers and developers, to create revolutionary ideas in VR. But in a crowded market where some cheaper options exist, that's exactly what it needs to do if it wants to separate itself from the pack. It says a lot that the games that I found myself most enjoying were either old or available in other places. Moss and Moss Book 2 are utterly delightful, and if like me you let them pass you by the first time, you should rectify that mistake. Tentacular, a game where you're a kind-hearted monster with tentacles trying to complete tasks to help out the quirky citizens of La Calma, is funny and creative. It let me use the PSVR 2's excellent eye tracking to interact with characters, and the sense controllers to pick up and fling objects for some physics-based mischief. And being in a galaxy far, far away in Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge is a lot of fun, but these are all games available in other places. The hurdle that PlayStation and PSVR 2 needs to overcome if the platform is to have a fruitful future is ensuring that there's support for it. And not only that, but giving people a compelling case to buy it or use it by offering exclusive and unique experiences. As it stands, Horizon Call of the Mountain is carrying the PSVR on its back. The lineup of games that support it will grow, and there are a few games on the way that I'm eager to play, Resident Evil Village and Resident Evil 4 Remake's VR content chief amongst them. Still, I can't recommend spending the cost of an entire gaming console for them, especially not at launch. This leaves PSVR 2 in a strange spot. As a successor, it improves on what came before in every possible way. It's a very well made VR headset that has a high quality build and premium feel, while utilizing powerful technology and features to ensure it hits all the markers for what a modern VR headset should offer.
Sorry, yeah, I just have to say this here. Dan Kitty is exactly right. New users won't have played all the other games. You know, like for a new user that has not tried VR yet, wow, there's so much to choose from. Yeah, all the games that we have already played, like this guy from Gamespot that we're watching the video right now, right? So it's going to be like completely mind-blowing, and of course it's worth $500. Like everything that we loved before, all the headsets that we loved before, right? But improved and even added some new functionalities into them, like the trigger feedback. You know, that's a small thing, but I believe right now, not having tested it yet, unfortunately, right? Like this must be incredible in VR, like mind-blowing new in VR. I love it on my PS5, and when I played PS5, I directly thought, okay, this is the standout feature, that kind of force feedback on the controllers, making me feel the different guns. But in VR, that is a complete amazing new invention, you know? So wow, I must say I totally don't agree with the VR burnout guy that we're watching right now. Sorry, dear GameSpot person who made this, I forgot your name right now, but I really, really completely cannot agree. No, sorry. Do you agree with me? No, do let me know in the comments, in the chat here right now.
And it does this while being paired with an equally powerful console capable of rendering awe-inspiring virtual spaces. But there's nothing that makes it absolutely essential to own right now, beyond the throes of being there on day one for new gaming hardware, or if you just really want more Horizon. What Sony has created is a VR headset that can exist in the space between the affordable but underpowered Quest 2 and the expensive but powerful Index. But much of what it offers can be found on cheaper devices like the Quest 2, which has the added benefit of being standalone and wireless. For enthusiasts and people willing to push through motion sickness like me, it's very impressive hardware.
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, the Quest 2 is great and you can get lots of the experiences. I mean, lots of the games, I agree. But you do not get these super huge AAA games, right? Like, for example, Call of the Mountain, like GT7, yeah? Instead, you get like the grid on the Quest 2, right? So, no, GT7, I'm angry now. No, really no. No, GameSpot. No.
hardware that needs more software to actually impress them. I hope that Sony and its partners start thinking outside of the box a bit more when it comes to games, and commit to supporting the platform long term in a meaningful way. The excellent hardware deserves as much. If they
Yeah, exactly, Artin. The powerful index? What? No. Nee. We would say in Germany. Nee.
do, the future of PSVR 2 will be exciting. But for now, that excitement is built on the same thing that VR has always enticed hopefuls with: potential.
Oh man, this guy really has VR burnout. Dear Tamur Hussein. Wow. VR burnout on GameSpot. we watched it in that video. Yep, okay, so that's so far is the review that I agree with the least, I must say. What is your what are your thoughts about that? No. Nope. Okay. So let us. Yeah, I'm just. You know what? I'm just wondering now if I'm like a 2D gamer, right? I like a PlayStation and Xbox and Horizon and stuff. And now I watched this review from GameSpot from this from Tamur is his name, I think, who is like completely burnt out on VR. Like he has seen it all and he thinks like, okay, it's bringing nothing really new to the table, which is not true. You don't really need to get it right now. What they are missing, what they're going to miss. Those people have never played VR. They have never played Moss. They've never played Pistol Whip. And they're not going to play now Horizon. So if they watch this review, they think, you know what? I can wait for another 3 years. 3 years lost or 2 years lost because of this review. Wow. Really? No, I'm really unhappy now about this review. The more I think about it. Right? Please do leave your comments under this video. And also under his video. What do you think about it? Oh no, don't do that. Don't do it on his video. It will give it more exposure. Right under this review. Right under this review, what do you think about the GameSpot review? Okay. Totally cannot understand this. It's really a bad review. Wow, this was the worst review yet. Shame! Okay, let's watch the next one. So, let's watch Digital Foundry review. Let's watch the Digital Foundry review. Okay, let me just add it here to the system. And then we're going to watch it. So that was bad. Well, that was bad. Yeah, IGN reviews, we have already watched it. So now let's watch the next one called Digital Foundry. Let's do this. And here we go.
Since the earliest days of video games, there has always been this desire to expand immersion, to push beyond the confines of your television and into a new reality, a virtual reality, if you will. Yet this promise of a new world has proven difficult to achieve. Early attempts at simulating virtual spaces using head-mounted displays dazzled the few that experienced it, but the high cost and low fidelity made it impossible to achieve true mainstream success. The hardware simply was not there yet. Fast forward to the year 2012. With a duct tape prototype in hand, John Carmack helped introduce the world to what would eventually become known as the Oculus Rift. Suddenly, virtual reality for consumers stood the chance of becoming an actual reality. It found moderate success, and the modern VR industry as we know it today was born. Over the next few years, however, the market began to fragment. Oculus transitioned from its own proprietary PC storefront to standalone hardware with the Oculus Quest.
You can remember that time.
While Valve and third-party manufacturers focused instead on the high-end PC experience via Steam VR. Then there was Sony. They offered owners of PlayStation 4 consoles an opportunity to step into the world of virtual reality with PlayStation VR, and it's from this point that our story today begins. The PSVR found just enough success to warrant a follow-up,
Thank you, Joey.
and that follow-up is known as PlayStation VR 2. PSVR 2 fundamentally is an all-new design that promises cutting-edge VR technology.
It looks beautiful,
with
doesn't it? What do you
significant
think?
evolution, both within the headset itself
Really think it's
and in the
beautiful.
controllers. Starting at $549 US, however, and with limited availability, the PSVR 2 is not a casual purchase. This is something you'll be committing to for
It is not
hopefully
casual.
years
You're
to
right.
come.
You're
the
right.
question I'd like to explore in today's review then is simple. What does PSVR 2 really bring to the table, and how does it stack up against the current competition? I'll discuss the OLED screen, the haptic features, the Sense controllers, and more, while also showcasing how all of this applies to various games on offer. So join me as we take a closer look at PlayStation VR 2.
Okay, I have a good feeling about this one. I have a really good feeling about this review. I like the guy. He comes across as sympathetic and as somebody who is into this whole VR thing. Let's see.
PSVR 2 ships in this
Are you
box,
positive
and
right
within,
now,
you'll
too, at
find
this
the
point in
headset,
time?
2 controllers, and an accessories box. If you're coming from the original PSVR, the first thing you'll notice is the drastic reduction in complexity. There's no breakout box or pass-through to worry about any longer. The headset has a single length
Thank you,
USB-C cable. And that's really
exactly,
all you're gonna need.
Sojoba. This
Build
guy looks like
quality
a gamer.
feels great.
This is
The
one of
materials
us.
used on the headset are certainly reminiscent of the original unit, but it addresses many of those original complaints. The rubber surrounding the viewfinder, for instance, provides drastically more light blocking, while offering improved comfort. The headset is also noticeably lighter, making long sessions more enjoyable, while the single USB-C
Oh,
cable
we
is
still look funny in
significantly
VR
less
headsets,
bulky
don't we?
than that on the original
Oh.
PSVR. Furthermore, the new controllers just feel premium. They're
They look so
dense and
good.
just weighty enough to
They
feel
look
great
so
in the hand.
good.
We'll talk more about those soon, however.
He
If
looks
you've
like one of
only
us.
used the original PSVR, all these improvements will feel immediately obvious. But of course, there is a lot of competition in this space. So to break it down, let's walk through the different aspects of this headset and the setup process while assessing performance along the
this
way.
guy.
It begins
I
with
like
the
him.
headset
I
itself.
want to have a
like
beer with
the
him.
original and Oculus Rift S for that matter, the PSVR 2 uses a halo system. You push this button on the rear of the unit to release the band, slide it over your head, then twist this dial to tighten it. The front visor is still controlled by a small button mounted along the top ridge of the unit. Press this to move the viewfinder in and out. PSVR 2 also features mechanical interpupillary distance via this dial here. This allows you to perfectly center the lenses in front of your own pupils. It's also comfortable to wear with glasses, thankfully. Once the headset is firmly in place then, you'll be presented with a series of setup steps. Unlike PSVR 1, this new headset does not rely on external tracking, so no camera or sensors are required. To determine the size and shape of your play space, the headset can basically scan the environment around you, creating this blue mesh representing the available area. It doesn't flash like this inside the headset, by the way. This is just in the capture. Now, it all feels kind of magical, but it can even be tweaked if you wish by simply pointing your controllers and dragging the edges outward. You can even assign temporary spaces if you move the headset around or just want to play seated once in a while.
Really? He's in
It's
Germany?
kind of comparable to the
Where is he?
Guardian setup with the Oculus products, but feels even more robust.
Cool. But they're
Once
not German,
inside
right?
the unit, however, you'll be given your first glimpse of the new
He speaks
OLED
way better
panel
than,
driving this
than
headset.
I do, obviously.
There's several key areas to discuss here then. Field of view, pixel density, panel brightness, contrast ratio, and motion clarity.
Oh, I like it.
PSVR
Okay,
2
this is going to
has
be a good
rated
review.
FOV of 110 degrees. Much wider than Oculus Quest and the original PSVR for that matter, but not quite on par with something like the
These
Vive
guys are
Pro
Germans?
2. However, in
Why do they
practice,
speak so
it
good English?
crosses that important line between looking
They
through
must
a
speak like
porthole
me.
and having a full-on view of the action. You'll notice the left and right edges of the screen like most headsets, but vertical visibility is nearly perfect. It feels instantly engaging and immersive. In terms of image
Okay.
clarity, PSVR 2
Good. Vertical
features
FOV is
4
good.
times the number of pixels per eye compared to PSVR 1, almost entirely eliminating the screen door effect in the process. It's extremely sharp and clean to the point where even small UI elements are perfectly legible. It's
Okay.
sharper in practice than just about any headset I've personally used. Alas, I have not had a chance to try the HTC Vive Pro 2, which boasts an even higher pixel
Oh
count.
no,
Though
you're glad that you
headset
didn't try
uses
this
an
one.
LCD rather
No,
than
no, no.
OLED. Which
No.
brings us to perhaps the most important aspect, the contrast ratio
Okay.
and support for high dynamic range, or HDR. In the past, especially with these older headsets like the PSVR 1, I've always felt that the imagery they could display appears somewhat dim and grainy, especially in bright scenes. That is no longer the case here. PSVR 2 boasts the brightest headset experience I've enjoyed to date. Bright scenes now project light that feels more natural to what your eyes might expect in the real world, outdoors at least, rather than the dull, washed-out colors you get in most other headsets.
Okay, that's probably why they didn't use pancake
Darker
lenses,
content
right?
has benefits as well. You would expect OLED to have perfect blacks, but prior headsets using this technology absolutely did not. In comparison, PSVR 2 can display absolute black while displaying VR imagery. The combination of bright highlights with deep black levels dramatically improves the presentation and contrast ratio. I really cannot overstate this enough. It now feels more comparable to a proper high-end OLED TV. It's really, really impressive. And beyond that, it retains the same low persistence, high performance characteristics you'd expect in a VR headset. At 90 or 120 Hz native, for instance, the clarity of motion is perfect. It actually resembles what's possible when using black frame insertion.
Okay, the clarity, let's say that again. The clarity of motion is perfect. So that is something to take note of, right? So the clarity of motion is perfect. So it sounds like no motion blur problems here. And so far, I really trust these guys. It's cool to know that they are living in good old Germany. Nice. But still, he should have more German accent if he lives in Germany.
Insertion on a modern OLED panel, but without the flicker. Alas, for the games that run at just 60 frames per second, using asynchronous time warp to create the illusion of 120 Hz head movement, you will notice a double image effect on moving objects. It is unfortunately the nature of the beast, and something you'll find in every other headset or even TV screen when displaying 60 Hz content within a 120 Hz container. So the screen is a huge part of the experience, and it is competitive with other high-end PC headsets when factoring all elements together. But there is more to PlayStation VR 2 than just what you see on the screen. First, I want to talk about the head tracking. For those with experience on PC headsets or something like the Oculus Quest, head tracking is a problem solved long ago. But if you've only used PSVR 1, it's worth noting that this new headset features perfect headset tracking. There's no wobble or swimming within the headset, which was very common with the original, and it perfectly tracks your surroundings, allowing you to walk around your room freely. But that's not the only thing it can track. PSVR 2 also features gaze tracking. That is, it can monitor the position of your eye.
Gaze tracking?
This can be used to improve rendering performance or enhance gameplay. With the former, the boost is the result of foveated rendering. The idea is to render fewer pixels within peripheral vision to reduce the workload. With most, but not all headsets, when used, it's typically a fixed area that can have an impact on overall visual quality, just around the peripheral of the lenses. With PSVR 2, however, the pixel density of a scene can vary based on where your eyes are actually looking. This isn't the first headset to offer this feature, mind you, but it's very useful for boosting frame rate while minimizing loss in visual clarity. You can really see it here in this shot. The drum is completely clear when I focus on it, but when I shift my gaze, it becomes blurry. You do not see this during actual gameplay in the headset, just in the capture. There's also gameplay implications. Certain titles allow you to directly interact with the scene by simply moving your eyes. In Horizon, for instance, you can select from menus entirely with your eyes without moving your head.
I'm so looking forward to the device. I can't wait for it.
A better example is something like Res Infinite. There's a mode available in this game that allows you to use your eyes
excited
for
about this.
targeting enemies, and it works. It's
From 1 to
completely wild
10,
shooting down enemies just using your
9.8.
eyes. It genuinely feels great to play it this way. We'll have to wait and see what else is done with it, but it's very promising. One thing to note, after speaking with the DF community, I decided to test this feature by closing one eye. Unfortunately, it does not work when doing this. Something to keep in mind for very specific use cases. The last major aspect of the headset, though, are the haptics. Now, this isn't anything revolutionary, and it basically resembles the sensation you get from a normal DualSense controller. but adding it to the headset itself is pretty cool and helps add some additional feedback to the experience. When something rushes past your head in a game like Horizon, for instance, or when you enter the world of synesthesia in Res Infinite, you'll certainly feel the headset. It's not game-changing, but it enhances immersion significantly. As for the audio, then, the headset does not include...
It enhances immersion significantly. Now, that is cool. I'm sure about those triggers, right? I want them. But even the other haptics that it enhances immersion significantly, that is what I'm looking forward for. I mean, I've been wearing these vests before and totally agree. That was great.
Include built-in speakers. Instead, it has a 3.5mm headphone jack for use with external earphones. The package includes a pair of earbuds, which click into place along the backside of the headset, however, which is very nice. And they actually sound pretty good and do work with PS5's 3D audio features.
Okay,
You'll experience the illusion of positional audio
believe
while using
this
it,
should
and
be
it's
fine.
very effective in VR.
I don't think I'm going to
and I
use a
almost
second
forgot. On
headset.
the underside of the visor, just next to the power button, you'll find a circular button that activates the camera system. You can press this at any time, allowing you to see the world around you. This way you can get your bearings without having to remove the headset each time. The key here is that all these different technologies combine to create something that's comfortable, high in fidelity, and super precise. It feels like a high-end product, which given the price, it absolutely should. Of course, most high-end headsets are designed for PC, yet PSVR 2 features a single USB-C cable. Theoretically, this should work on the PC, right? Well, we know that it doesn't, and if you try to plug it in right now,
everybody needs
Windows
to plug it
simply
in.
returns an error
I will
message
plug it
that
in
the
my
USB
review as well.
device has an issue. But I'm sure hoping that modders get their hands on this thing soon, because it would be fantastic if PSVR could also work with Steam VR. It would be a no-brainer for VR fans at that point, given the quality of the headset. But of course, these days, VR is a lot more than just the headset. The controllers are every bit as important to the experience. Now, the original PSVR, which launched at $399 US, did not include any controllers at all, nor the camera required to track the headset. It was specifically designed to be used with PS Move controllers, which, while good for their time, were not suitable for proper VR. At launch, Sony offered a package including the Move controllers and camera for $499 US. So out of the gate, the original was certainly a little bit cheaper, but they are comparable in price. Now, the Sense controllers are key to the experience. Hand tracking is nothing new for most VR systems, of course, but if you're coming from the PSVR with the Move controllers, it'll be a revelation. This is the key behind proper VR interaction and what really helps set it apart from PSVR 1. The controller design is, quite frankly, pretty much just a direct copy of the Oculus Touch. You have the same outer loop design, though configured slightly differently, with similar button configuration and capacitive buttons as well. However, this is a very good thing, as Oculus Touch is fantastic, and so are the Sense controllers. Like Touch, the Sense relies on inside-out tracking from the headset, and they do work anywhere in the room. This is important because it ensures you won't run into any occlusion issues or glitches when moving around, which again was super common with the PS Move. Both controllers also include wrist straps for your own safety, complete with fasteners featuring a little engraved PlayStation logo. I definitely recommend using them, trust me. The difference between the Sense controllers and Oculus Touch mainly comes down to the haptics.
Here we go again.
The quality of these haptics is greatly improved, resembling the DualSense controller that ships with the PS5 and of course the headset itself.
Wow, I can't wait
As
for
you
this.
often use your hands
This is going to be the
within
standout
game
feature for me, I
worlds in
think.
VR, the extra haptic feedback you get really amps up the overall immersion. I will say though, as good as the hand tracking tends to be, it isn't 100% flawless and does kind of vary between games. Something like Horizon, for instance, I sometimes found that my hands would randomly do strange things and get caught up when interacting with certain surfaces, but this is also something I've encountered with other inside-out solutions, so overall I'd say it's not a big problem, just something to note. It is a generational leap over the Move though, that's for sure. Each
So
controller
not
also
perfect
has a
tracking, but
USB-C
good enough.
port on the bottom here for charging. So how does it all work in practice? Well, during this review we had access to these games, which are mostly just updated versions of previous released titles. Games such as Gran Turismo 7 and Resident Evil Village had not yet placed their updates live, unfortunately. Horizon Call of the Mountain is perhaps the best showcase for new hardware features. The game itself differs greatly from the mainline entries, but it focuses instead on granular interactions. Using the Sense controllers, you'll engage in everything from physically constructing weapons, utilizing various tools to climb steep rock walls,
everyone loves this
engaging
game.
in combat and solve puzzles Tomb Raider style. It makes full use of haptic features and 3D spatial audio, plus it looks fantastic. Res Infinite makes a return with an updated version for PSVR 2. It's a fantastic showcase for the new HDR capabilities of the display and the controls made possible.
Right,
with
that
this
should
new
be
hardware.
pretty powerful.
The contrast is
pretty
perfect.
colorful.
The colors and highlights are far brighter than any VR headset I've used. It's a real showcase. The haptics are, of course,
Let's see if
used
it's going to
well,
be
as you'd
brighter
expect
than
from
the
the gaming
Vario
games,
Aero. You know, the Vario Aero is super
and
bright.
You can use the Sense
Let's see.
controllers,
I will
the
tell
headset,
you
or your
on
eyes for
MRTV,
aiming.
where you can
Thumper
see
also
all the
receives
VR
an update
headsets.
and is extremely immersive. The haptics, increased contrast, brighter image, and higher resolution all result in a more immersive experience all around, and it remains just as awesome today as ever. Moss Book 1 and 2 have been updated for PSVR. This game has you sitting within various dioramas while controlling your character, and this one serves as a fantastic demonstration of the benefits of increased pixel count in the headset. If you try Moss on the original PSVR, for instance, then switch over to PSVR 2, the leap in clarity is genuinely surprising.
Okay,
We
cool.
already released a full video on Song in the Smoke Rekindled, and after trying it for myself, I can see why the team was so excited. All the various PSVR 2 features are put to use, and it helps create something that feels completely fluid and precise. Unfortunately, during testing, we did not have access to much in the way of new games, aside from Horizon, but those we did play at least offer a glimpse of what the hardware can truly bring to the table. So that's basically the hardware in a nutshell then. But before I present my final thoughts on it, I want to talk about a couple additional features as well. Firstly,
I like
the
this
theater
review.
mode. Like PSVR, this allows you to view 2D content within the headset using a resizable virtual screen. Thanks to the dramatic increase in brightness and clarity of this screen, however, I found it infinitely more viable this time around.
Nice.
Imagery is sharp and clear, and the games themselves are remarkably vibrant. More importantly, the headset supports 2D games capable of 120Hz output and HDR, which basically means you have a full 120Hz HDR OLED screen for use with regular content. It's a pretty awesome feature. Then of course there's the capture situation. Now I expect this isn't something most people need to worry about, but for content creators it's important. As you can see, the footage in this review is all relatively sharp. It was captured at 4K directly from the PS5's HDMI video output. PSVR 1 in comparison produced extremely blurry footage with obvious borders and exceptionally nasty image quality. But in comparison, PS5 looks really crisp.
Great.
The only downside is that it seemingly outputs 60 Hz at max, and depending on how the game is designed, you might even get some screen.
You know, still, nobody from all these reviews has talked about if we can stream this to YouTube and then see the chat. You know, there was such a great feature of the PSVR 1 that you could simply play and you could see the chat in VR and react and communicate with your community, right? So nobody has said that yet. I really hope it's there. I really hope it's there. Have you heard anyone say that? Please let me know in the comments if you can confirm that there will be chat when you stream.
Screen tearing in the capture. You don't see it in the headset. As a result of this limitation, it's currently impossible for us to actually accurately run performance tests on PSVR 2 software, which is a shame. So what do I think of PSVR 2 overall then? Well, as a hardware device, it's an impressive package. It competes with more expensive PC headsets and is a lot more comfortable to use than PSVR 1 while offering a ton of potential. And that's the problem, it's just potential. Right now the headset is very expensive and it's only available through Sony themselves, at least as far as I can tell. This leads me to wonder whether or not the install base will grow fast enough to warrant producing bigger games for the platform. Now don't get me wrong, the software lineup at launch is pretty solid, although I
Yeah,
didn't
exactly,
have
solid.
access to all of them during this review period. But many of the games are just enhanced conversions of prior releases. At least several offer free upgrades, but still, they're older games. Should it find its place in the market and gain that PC support via modders, I would definitely say it's worth picking up, but for now, I would use a little caution. Of course, if you are a PSVR 1 player and are looking for the next step in virtual reality, PSVR 2 absolutely delivers. This is a vastly superior VR experience that brings all the advances seen in other areas of the market to PlayStation 5, along with some key improvements including HDR OLED output. So yeah, it's a great headset, definitely worth checking out, but boy, it's pretty expensive. That's going to do it for this video, however. I hope you enjoyed it, and
Okay.
we'll see you next time.
Nice. There was a nice review overall. Nice to meet the Digital Foundry guys. Good to know that they are in Germany. But I still wouldn't agree on like, wow, it's so expensive. You really have to keep in mind what you get. For $550, you're beamed into another reality that you never before could explore like you can with this device. You know, okay, not that I would have tried it yet, but from those reviews, from those reviews. So amazing visuals, fantastic colors, haptics in the head and in the triggers. Come on. I really don't think that's like so super expensive. $550. How much, and that's always like my favorite example. How many thousands of dollars do people invest for projector TVs, for beamers, projectors? Thousands. And what can they do? They can watch movies. Yeah, they can watch movies. And nobody would go online or would make a review and say, "Oh, you should be careful. Don't pay 2,000 euros for that projection TV or for that laser TV. It is very expensive." And now this device, it costs $550, and you can totally be inside the video games. You know, like how do they come up with that? Oh, it's so expensive thing. I don't get it. Yes, obviously this is a VR enthusiast channel. Yes, but I really don't get it. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong to portray these $550 for this device, which can turn your PS5 into a device where you can be in the video games, as something expensive. Exactly, D-Man. D-Man agrees with me 100%. It's crazy to call it expensive for what you get with it. And I can just say, watch those videos where Sony themselves tears down the devices, right? Tears down the headset. I've reacted to it here on the channel 2 days ago. And also, they're tearing down the controllers. Just see how much ingenuity, how much high tech is in these devices. So, how can they call it expensive for what you get? I wouldn't. I really wouldn't say it's expensive. Really, show me one review of these kind of projection TVs where they would say like €1,000 is expensive. Come on, like phones, like iPhones cost $1,500, and people buy them every year. Okay, rent end. Rent end, right? Thank you, Joey, again, man. Thanks. Thanks, Joey. Oh, man. So, okay, my Siri just started here, but I don't know. Okay, it's very cheap, right? No, really. Facts, exactly, Mason. Facts. Okay. Yeah, really, this kind of thing with it's so expensive, $500. No. So, you know what? Now, let's watch a review that I'm looking forward to. And that is Norm from Tested. And, I expect like probably the best review yet. Really, really. Like Norm from Tested, he has, same like me, checked out all the headsets. He really knows. He's a VR enthusiast. I think he can really put it into perspective. And I'm pretty sure that Norm from Tested is not going to say it's expensive. That's my feeling here right now. And by the way, if Norm is watching this right now, probably not, but perhaps yes, I don't know. I would love to work together with Norm on some video, or like I would love to have Norm from Tested on the Next Dimension podcast. So if any of you would ever talk to Norm or like comment on his videos, please tell him Sebastian from MRTV would love to have him on the Next Dimension podcast or do some other kind of cooperation. It would be fantastic. Would love to do that. Okay, so now let me react to Norm from Tested's video. I'm really looking forward to find out what he thinks about it. So let me just add this now, add source. And let's do this. Where is he? Here he is. Here he is. And let me roll the video. Here we go. Good start already. With the music. I think I should also do that for the MRTV review.
Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested, and today I'll be reviewing the PlayStation VR2, PSVR 2,
yes,
next week. This is a review unit that Sony sent me that I've been testing for the past week, almost 1 week, and today we'll be covering the hardware, the game experiences I've had access to so far, and how this headset compares not only to the first PlayStation VR, but also the other headsets on the market today, whether they're standalone headsets like the MetaQuest 2 or tethered PC VR experiences, and really who this headset is for. So let's dive in.
Let's do it. Let's dive in.
Talking about the form factor and ergonomics. So this is a tethered VR headset. It plugs into the PS5 via one USB-C cable. So comparably, it's very similar to the kind of tethered VR experience you'd get using a headset like the Valve Index or the HP Reverb. This is not like a MetaQuest 2 or even MetaQuest Pro or even the upcoming HTC Vive Elite XR Elite, in that it's not running a system-on-a-chip processor. All the game processing is done on the PS5, and that means that the important parts of this headset are the display, the optics, the comfort and fit, and its audio solution. So form factor-wise, actually is using the same kind of Halo headband strap as the first PSVR, and I like this design. It's comfortable all the way around, has an extendable head strap where you press this button, extends out, elegant, and then as it clamps around your head, you can tighten it using a ratcheting dial in the back. You feel the headset pressure on the back of your head as well as on the top of your forehead, and I do think it's balanced enough because, like I said, there's no battery on the inside of this, that it doesn't feel like you have a lot of front-heavy weight, which some people using like the MetaQuest Pro have had over long durations, because that one does have a lot of hardware on that standalone headset. It weighs just under 600 grams, so the first PSVR was right at 600 grams, not including the cable. Sony says this weighs 560, but putting it on a scale, holding the cable up, read to me is 590 grams, which is still much lighter than, for example, a fully kitted out Quest 2 with Elite head strap and custom facial interface. But really is about that balance, and the big win here is the setup. Setting the PSVR 2 up is just a
comfort
complete generational difference.
Checked, right? Everybody
than
loves
that
the comfort.
clunky
Great.
setup that you had with the first
And setup also
PlayStation
everyone
VR. If
loves.
you don't recall, PSVR 1 required that you buy the headset, which was $400 in itself. They had a bundle that included the PlayStation Eye as well as the Move controllers, but those were dated technologies that they kind of bootstrapped onto the headset. It plugged into the PS4 and the PS4 Pro and still works with the PS5 using a bunch of breakout boxes. In fact, you can still see on the cables numbered instructions of like what to plug in first. And it worked, but it also meant that getting it set up became a cumbersome task. And for a lot of reasons, this sat in the drawer for a couple of years. I mean, it's been a couple of years since it's launched as well. Sony obviously took that to note, designed the PS5 with this in mind. In the front of the PS5, there's a USB Type-A port and as well as a USB Type-C port. The Type-C port is what you plug that into, single cable. It's about 4.5 meters long, so over 14 feet long, and that's plenty for sitting close to your entertainment center. It really depends on what your gaming setup is. In my living room, even though I have the TV and the PlayStation right up front, I'm not sitting with this on the couch. I'm sitting it kind of adjacent or maybe on the floor or standing in the area of the carpet in front of the TV with plenty of space to do a little bit of moving around, definitely for standing experiences with free locomotion. Nothing I tried required a large room scale area, though as you're setting this up, it does ask that you have a 6.7 foot by 6.7 foot play area if you want to do full room scale. The setup process also now doesn't require any cameras looking in. It's inside-out tracking. So in the front of the PSVR 2, there are 4 cameras. This allows for the positional tracking of the headset as well as the recognition of the new Sense VR controllers, which we'll talk about. And it also allows for much higher resolution pass-through. It is a grayscale pass-through, and the setup was actually very impressive. And the very first thing you do is you put on
everybody
the
loves
headset
the setup as
and
well.
You
Good.
look around your room, and it does kind of a mapping of the room. There's some cool visualizations that show that it's recognizing your wall, ceilings, and floors. And then after that, you can do some precision calibration, either using the controllers to touch the floor or using the thumbstick to set your height, as well as
that's interesting that you
expanding
can set your height. That one is
marking out
new.
where your guardian area is, where the boundaries are, so you don't knock into your couch. It doesn't do any kind of automatic guardian detection where it recognizes
That is okay. I don't need to have it
so
automatic.
It doesn't know where your
Yeah, it's
TV is,
okay.
doesn't know where your coffee table is or your couch is. It still just is kind of this nebulous play space that you're generating, which then becomes that safe area to play. There's a button on the bottom of the headset that you can press anytime. It's a function button. By default, by pressing it once, you go into your pass-through view, so you can see the world, again, in a relatively high-resolution stereo grayscale, but you can also reprogram that as well to mute your microphone. So it's a power button, which you can hold down to boot up the headset, and that activates the rumble motor on the headset, its head strap itself, and then you're in game. So you're in the experience. You're putting on the headset and you see a floating representation of the PlayStation home menu. From here, if you're not interested in playing full VR games, and we'll talk about the game selection, you can enter a cinematic mode. So any game that you would be able to play on your TV, you can actually
I'm really
play
looking
in a
forward to the
virtual
cinematic
display
mode.
in headset. You could do that as well in the PSVR 1. It was one of, I think, the best features. Here, the implementation is a little bit different because this is not a mirrored video connection. You don't get both the video on a TV as well as video in headset if you're using the cinematic mode, if you have that floating flat screen.
That is okay in my opinion.
It's useful, for example, if someone in your house wants to play a
my
different
wife.
game console or watch something on TV, you can still be in headset playing God of War, Astro Bot, Spider-Man, whatever you have in
Exactly.
your PS library. You can customize the brightness as well as the size of that cinematic mode screen. And I found that the size changing was kind of interesting because there are two ways to think about the screen size. You can think about a set distance of a large TV and how far you're moving it close or further away from you, or you could think of it about having difference between having like a 36-inch monitor versus a 77-inch monitor. Bigger screens, but
Okay,
kind
I
of
like
a
that.
fixed position. The way I experienced the screen size change, it definitely felt like a large screen that's moving closer to you or further away as I changed that scaling, which meant that in this largest size, it did fill my entire peripheral vision, but I felt that it was too close. And I found a sweet spot for me was a little bit past 50% in that cinematic mode. Other adjustments on the headset, like PSVR
I think it's great that you can do that,
1,
actually.
one of my favorite things is there is facial relief here. So the gasket is this soft silicone. It doesn't really press against your face. It's very loose fitting. Same with the nose flap here. And what you do is you press that top button as you put this on, and you can slide it closer to your face, which not only gets you a tighter fit and blocks out more outside light, but also gives you as wide of a field of view as possible. It also means that with my glasses, I can wear this in headset, no problem. I can press the headset as close to my glasses as possible. I recommend still looking at aftermarket options for prescription lenses as those become available.
Prescription
because the
lenses
thing you don't
will
want to
be
do
coming.
is have your glasses lenses rub against the interior Fresnel lenses. That can scuff them up. I've done it before many times with other headsets. It's not something you want to do, but you can wear glasses in this really comfortably. And you can adjust the facial relief as well if you don't want the full widest field of view, or if you're extending it out and drinking a cup of coffee or soda or something. That works well also. Also new to PSVR 2 is finally IPD adjustment.
Yep, that's
so
important.
There's a dial here, and because this headset, the optics and displays are two separate discrete panels rather than one single 1080p panel. That was the case with the first PSVR, that you can have a granular IPD adjustment. I don't have an exact range of what that IPD adjustment is, but for me, my IPD is 68, and I was able to find a pretty good sweet spot, as well as extending pretty far beyond that.
68, okay.
So I wouldn't be surprised if this comfortably gets people in the 70, 71 IPD as well. There is an in-headset visualization to help you find that IPD, but surprisingly, they don't show a number. So a lot of PCVR headsets, as you adjust the IPD, you see that distance indicated below. Here, there is no distance.
But
and
actually,
so it kind of makes
in my
it
opinion,
difficult
that's
if
okay.
you're constantly putting on the headset and taking it off to find that sweet spot every single time, because you don't know where the dial is. You kind of have to tinker with it until
that's what he means.
your
Okay.
eyes
Yeah,
finally see
that's
everything
true.
pretty clearly. There also is much better built-in audio. Well, not really built-in, but audio options with the PSVR 2. Unlike with other headsets, Valve Index, Quest 2, Quest Pro, there's no speakers on the headset itself. They don't have kind of the off-ear headphones. What you have, though,
I would have
is
preferred it, though,
bundled
I
in the
think.
box a way to plug in these earbuds. Now, if you recall, the first PSVR, you also had to use their bundled earbuds, but you plugged them into a port that was on the tethered cable. It was a cumbersome system. You would fumble over plugging it in. Most people just use headphones. Even using headphones, you get tangled in the wires. Thankfully, Sony has addressed that with PSVR 2, and there's this interesting custom headphone attachment that plugs into two places. There's a soft plug here on one side just to lock in place, and then actually a 3.5
I think it's
millimeter
okay.
jack on
We
the
have
other
heard
side,
quite
and
good
then the
reviews
earbuds
about
just
that.
dangle here. I found this a very
Let's
easy
see.
to use solution. The headphones come with 3 different sizes of tips, so it works great for mine using the small tips, and I didn't feel the need to use over-the-head earphones, although you could use those as well, plug them in over the 3.5 millimeter jack.
Okay, good to
or
know
use
that that he
Bluetooth
didn't feel the
headphones,
need
like
to
the ones
use
Sony
overhead
sells.
over-ear
And then finally,
earphones.
the
Good to know.
controllers. So these are the DualSense
Here we
VR
go.
controllers
Here we go again.
that have, and really, I think, a really interesting design. There's your classic tracking ring. I think there are 12 IR LEDs on the inside that the headset can see. But unlike, the Quest 2 controllers, the tracking ring isn't in front of where your hand is. It actually is a larger ring, and it's recessed to closer to where your wrist is, which I think allows for better tracking, and which means you can get the controllers closer together in the front without worried about knocking into each other or occlusion. And button-wise, you have your standard thumbsticks. There are 2 action buttons on the top. You have a PlayStation button on both of the sides that gets you into the menu, a button that's a menu button that you can also depress to realign, and then your trigger and grips. The grips here are the only things I didn't like so much because they are a single tap grip with not a lot of travel at all. They're not analog. And the triggers are adaptive triggers, much like you'd find in the DualSense controllers. 1 stage, not 2 stage triggers here, but
Okay. So we talked about this. I told you that a German reviewer also thought that the grips are not really great. It's like digital, and only like on and off, and kind of like hard to press. Good to find out that Norm also thinks so. So it seems like the controllers are great in everything other than battery life, only 4 to 5 hours, and the grip button kind of hard to click and only like on or off. Okay, good to know.
but they do have resistance and really nice tactile feedback. There are also capacitive sensors on the triggers, the grips, as well as the top 2 buttons and the thumbstick. So there's pose recognition. So in upcoming social applications, or even in some of the launch titles here, that you'll be able to recognize some basic gestures, your thumbs up, your peace signs. And I found it comparable to what you'd find in the first generation Quest and Quest 2, but there's no full hand tracking here. So you're going to be using these controllers, or playing a game using the DualSense PlayStation controller. One thing that I wish was an option here that they had to let go of because they're not using the PlayStation Eye is there is no tracking of the DualSense or here DualSense Edge controllers at all. Some of my favorite games in PSVR 1, like Astrobot or even Super Hypercube, was great because you didn't have to use the Move controllers. You could use the DualShock controllers, and because that had the light in the front, it was actually recognized positionally by that PlayStation Eye. Here, if you're playing a cinematic mode game, for example, using the DualSense controller, you don't see a representation of this, which I think is a little bit of a bummer. It's a missed opportunity, and it kind of narrows the input options for VR experiences to these new DualSense VR controllers. Not bad, but there's no button parity here between this. You can't use these controllers as a direct replacement for your DualSense controllers because you still need your D-pad, you still need the 4 buttons on the right side, and so you have to use one or the other. I just wish that the DualSense controllers could be tracked somehow. Maybe a future version, or they're going to put some LED lights on here. I don't know. The motion controllers here also don't feel too heavy, thankfully, and they charge via a USB-C cable, although Sony does sell a charging dock that allows you to plug in a USB-C adapter, and then you just drop that into the charging dock. Battery life on controllers for me was about 4.5 hours, 5 hours. Basically about 2 play sessions. Looking at the in-UI battery indicator, those 3 bars, after about 2 hours of play, it dropped down to 2 bars. Another hour and a half or so dropped down to 1 bar.
Okay, 4 to 5 hours.
It's kind
That's
of the story
what we learned from all these reviews.
PS5
not too long, unfortunately.
Battery life not so great. You want to throw this on to the dock or plug it into USB-C and charge it overnight. And unfortunately, you cannot charge it and play at the same time. So if you plug this into USB-C, have a battery pack, it won't charge. You'll still be able to see the controller in headset, only when it recognizes when there's no motion and you're not in a game, will then start charging. I also found that the haptics, while they're effective in games like Horizon Call of the Mountain or something like Kayak VR, you can actually feel nice sensitive rumbles when you're moving your stick and hitting objects. It wasn't as granular or kind of world-changing and groundbreaking as I found the DualSense haptics. Playing the Astrobot game that comes with the PS5 and being able to recognize what type of surface you're walking the Astrobot over, you don't feel that kind of nuance with, at least I didn't feel that kind of nuance using these controllers. And maybe that's developers not tapping into the motors and the haptics here as much with this launch lineup. But even the rumble on the headset wasn't a big game changer to me. They're more subtle cues, and the biggest thing is, when you're pressing the power button, you can hear that rumble, but it wasn't something that I felt like was a completely groundbreaking experience. Tracking fidelity-wise, I think it's great. I think it's kind of what you expect from an modern inside-out tracking system, where I never lost tracking on the headset. I tried it in a bunch of different rooms, so with open windows, with nice lighting, dimmer lighting, and it was able to...
Let me stop that for a moment here, because I think that's interesting to talk about. So he thinks that the haptics in the hand controllers are not as good as in the DualSense, or he said probably the developers have not yet tapped into the power. So that is something that I hear now for the very first time. The other reviewers were basically all super excited about it, and that's also my anticipation for those force feedback triggers. So that is something that I will check out especially carefully once I get my unit next week.
Able to navigate those environments pretty well. You have the option of doing seated experience, standing experience, changing that boundary, that guardian boundary, and then recognizing the controllers, I'd say very comparable to what you find in the Quest 2. I did find moving the controllers maybe a little bit close to my face. I noticed some drift on them, and I do find a little bit of occlusion if I'm holding them in a specific pose, but never did I find that when I move the controller out to the peripheral of my field of view, was I losing any of that tracking. Also, none of the experiences were like a beat.
Okay, so drift and occlusion, that are both kind of big problems, right? So yeah, let's see about that. Seems like they could improve the controller tracking. From everything that I heard from these reviews, it's still not as good as something like Quest 2, probably. Something that we have to check out.
Beat Saber type experience where I would be waving them wildly outside my field of view either. So definitely good enough, and tracking was not an issue with any of the experiences.
Okay,
Speaking
good.
of tracking though, something that's new to PSVR 2 is it does have eye tracking. Very interesting that PlayStation and Sony decided to include eye tracking with this headset. It's implemented in a couple of ways. You do a little bit of calibration in the headset, look at your standard look at moving dots, and then it can recognize not only where you're gazing, but whether your eyes are closed. There's a nice interface element where you can see whether you're blinking or not. And in a game like Horizon Call of the Mountain, you can use that gaze tracking to navigate menus. And very quickly, I found this much preferred over your standard kind of head-tracked pointer. So in classic VR, maybe you're moving your head as a pointer to select icons, and you can turn off gaze tracking at any time to do that. I found it so much easier and so much more intuitive and natural to just use my eyes to move the cursor. And it wasn't a wildly moving cursor. They do smooth it out to highlight items and a menu option. In game, though, the biggest benefit of eyes tracking and gaze tracking is foveated rendering.
Foveated rendering, of
this
course.
is something that was really interesting to test. It's the idea that knowing where your eyes are looking, the system can render objects outside or in your periphery in a lower fidelity, whether it's lower resolution, lower textures, but in lower detail because you don't need to see all that detail in your periphery. So in headset, turning that on, it was something I didn't notice, right? Because I'm looking where I'm looking, I couldn't tell what outside my center of focus was changing in image quality. But because it does mirror in VR mode what you see off of one of your eyes onto your TV, I was able to test with some outside assistance the foveated rendering. And it actually does work. So in a game like Kayak VR, if I'm looking at the beach ball and I'm focusing right in the center of it, then that beach ball is going to look perfectly smooth with no aliasing. But as soon as I dart my eyes either to the far left, far right, up or down, you can actually see that very quickly that beach ball, the jaggies start appearing. The aliasing on that circle starts appearing. And not only was that in Kayak VR, but also in Horizon Call of the Mountain, something that was very noticeable to spectators was that photo rendering. I could point my hand and say, I'm actually gazing here. My head's held still. My eyes are looking to the right, and they would say, wow, the objects to the left definitely look more blurry. Now, what that performance improvement generates, though, that's harder to test. And turning gaze tracking off, I also wasn't able to notice a massive performance decrease. So,
you know what I really wonder? Like, why don't any of them say, like, how good does it look as compared to the other headsets? Like, how good does Kayak Mirage look as compared to the Quest 2, the HP Reverb G2, the Vario Aero? You know, that would be something that me as a VR enthusiast would want to know, and probably you as well, right? So which channel are you going to watch for that? MRTV. Okay, just to let you know. And don't forget about this channel. It's very good. Thumbs up if you think so too.
So maybe it's running the system more efficiently, maybe it's generating more consistent frame rates, but it wasn't like turning on foveated rendering suddenly allowed the difference between 90 hertz rendering and 120 hertz rendering. Most of the time I could still tell when something was running at 120 hertz, they were using reprojection, and you can see the kind of telltale signs of an image being rendered actually at 60 hertz, then doubled over to 120 hertz. All right, let's talk about optics and image quality. What you've been waiting for, what people have been waiting for. So
now he's going to say
it's using two separate panels here. They are 2000 by 2040 resolution each, and these are OLED panels like they use with the first PSVR with an RGB substripe, so it's not pentile subpixel arrangement. It's going to be high pixel fill, not necessarily no screen door effect, but you don't notice the space between the pixels. Now, if you follow VR, you know it's not about resolution. It's not about necessarily even the pixels per inch of the panel.
Okay, so apparently many of the reviewers said that actually you can see the pixels or some sort of screen door effect. So, all right, good to know. Good to know. So let's just get ready for that it's not like perfectly smooth, but for this resolution, it's something that we would expect.
The panel, it's about pixels per degree, which is how dense the pixels are, how dense the image quality is relative to the field of view. Here, the field of view is rated at 110 degrees diagonally, so that's up from 100 degrees in the PSVR 1 and up from the 90 or so degrees of the Quest 2 and the MetaQuest Pro and the current generation of headsets using pancake lenses. And so we're starting to see these trade-offs between types of panel and types of optics in modern day VR. Sony here is using, like I said, an OLED panel, two OLED panels, and using Fresnel optics, which means that gives them that slightly wider field of view. But with that wide field of view, and that's what you get if you use press the headset right up to your face, the pixels per degree here are basically around 19 pixels per degree, so less than the PPD of the Quest 2 and the Meta Quest Pro, although the rendering here is made up for because you're running the full processing power of a gaming PC, basically, a PS5. So it's not running off of a mobile chipset. So you're getting games that are running closer to native resolution or have higher resolution textures.
Right, that's the point.
Doing scaling.
That is the point.
And so even though the pixels per degree might be lower than the Quest 2, I actually found the image quality much nicer than that of the Quest 2. Doing comparison in Demio, for example, looking at Demio in Quest 2.
Okay, nicer than
versus
Quest
in
2. Like
PSVR 2.
I am not impressed
Holding up those
by
cards in
that
front of me, the
comparison.
text looked almost
right?
exactly the same. What was different though was with the PSVR 2 being an OLED, the black levels were pitch black, the colors look so vibrant, and the brightness is maybe the best part of the display system here. Sony calls them HDR. I wouldn't say it's as high quality as HDR as like a nice OLED TV. So I have an LG OLED TV, and playing God of War in that in full HDR versus in cinematic mode in headset here, I'm still going to prefer the full 4K resolution of my actual TV. But in headset, comparing to other mobile headsets, desktop headsets, the brightness is noticeable, and it is really vibrant. Using the image that you see here, these are two photos taken with a camera with the same exposure settings, same shutter, same ISO between the Quest 2 and PSVR 2, and PSVR 2 much, much brighter. It is a noticeable quality of life improvement. But there are trade-off. So because they're using Fresnel lenses, there are some God rays. I'd say less than that what I've noticed in the Quest 2, so whatever optical stack they're using.
Okay, so this is the first review where we actually hear God rays, right? I don't think in the other reviews they had mentioned it. Good. Good to know.
Diminish some of those, even with pitch black screens and really bright logos and icons. Noticeable, that glare, but not distracting, not as bad as what you'd see in like the Valve Index, for example.
Okay.
And I did notice Mira. So Mira is the effect of the screen looking a little bit dirty, and you notice this in like gray.
Wow, the first time that we hear it now.
Really near pitch black and dark gray. Sometimes it looks like not chromatic aberration, but looks like this almost discolored grime that's on the screen.
Yeah, that's Mura.
If you look for it, it's there. It wasn't distracting in vast majority of games, especially bright games, but do notice it in some dark scenes. And then finally, the sweet spot for these optics. And we're going to talk about these in two different ways.
Okay, here we go, sweet spot.
iBox, which is how big of a volume of a sweet spot there is for your eyes relative to the lenses. So how much adjustment do you need to do to find that sweet spot? And here I think the iBox is kind of small, so which is why the IPD adjustment is.
He knows the difference between sweet spot and edge-to-edge clarity. Yeah, good.
Is necessary, and a good fit into your head is necessary. I did find sometimes the headset jostled left or right. I did have to adjust it because once my eyes move out of alignment with that iBox, things start looking blurry fast. In terms of the sweet spot of visuals, once you are in that iBox though, it is a pretty wide sweet spot. Not as wide as what you get out of pancake optics, like in the Quest Pro, but here it's a relatively wide sweet spot. You do notice some of that chromatic aberration and some of the blurring near the periphery on the outside. But I do think, combined with that brightness of these panels and the true black levels, it's a better image quality overall than a Quest 2. I did want to take a moment to talk about this cable and the image quality you get out of a tethered VR experience. Now, if you have a Quest, you know you can plug that into your PC over the USB cable and get the Link experience, a PC VR experience over a Quest Link. But that is image compression. So what's happening there is your video card is taking these images and compressing them and then sending them over a data connection at a very high bit rate, something that you can maybe customize. And you can sometimes notice the artifacts of that in the image compression, sometimes in some of the reprojection and the latency, which isn't how the first couple generations of VR headsets worked if you plugged it in over an HDMI or DisplayPort connection. I think, and Sony hasn't been clear about this, but this is a DisplayPort connection. And this USB-C is using USB-C with either DisplayPort Alt or Sony's own protocol. The way I was able to suss that out, I plugged in my Nreal Airs right into this port, and I was able to get audio, not video. So I think there's some type of encryption, but audio, which you wouldn't be able to do just plugging in like USB headphones. So I do think it's using more than just the USB-C data connection. It's in some kind of DisplayPort.
We should get
alt
more
mode,
information about
which gives
that.
them more lanes in this connection for image quality. And in headset, I didn't notice any of that telltale image compression of in any high quality game, no latency, no reprojection artifacts. This feels like a true PC VR style tethered gaming experience in all the best ways possible. And the fact that this is just that single USB-C cable, it's kind of fulfilling the promise of Virtual Link. Remember that standard that VR headsets makers try to adopt, where you could just plug a USB-C display link cable right into your video card and have data, power, and video. You're getting that here in the PS5 and PSVR 2. All right, let's talk about the games and experiences. And here's where I think, compared to the PSVR 1 launch, Sony fell a little bit short here. First of all, there aren't many exclusives to PSVR 2. At launch here, they say they're working on 100 games and titles in this launch window, but really there's about half dozen games that are going to be unique to PSVR 2. One is Horizon Call of the Mountain, set in the Horizon universe, developed by Guerrilla Games, and that is a launch title, full $60 title. The other two are ports, so Gran Turismo 7, GT7, as well as Resident Evil Village, both have full VR ports also on launch day. Fortunately, it's not launch day yet, and reviewers don't have access to those VR patches, so I'm unable to test GT7 and Resident Evil Village, even though I really want to play both of those in VR. There's also Switchback VR and Fantavision VR that are exclusive to PSVR 2, but their flagship is Horizon Call of the Mountain. Think of this as their Half-Life Alyx, which I'm also shocked isn't a part of this launch lineup. Sony, Valve,
of course,
get it done.
That would be
it is a full
better.
Game. So Call of the Mountain isn't, I was afraid it was going to be kind of like a tech demo, 2 to 3 hour experience, showcasing some of the controllers, some of the functionality. No, there's a full story here. It's about 6 hours to beat. You don't play as Aloy, but you do play in that world. And the best way to describe it is it's kind of like Crytek's The Climb. It's a climbing game primarily. You're traversing the world through locomotion, whether it's swinging your arms or free locomotion, but you're really getting around doing these rock climbing maneuvers, in which you're grabbing, you're using pickaxes, you're sliding through ropes, and it's quite fun, the traversal. Interspersed with a lot of interesting evasion and combat, so a few puzzles to solve, not terribly difficult, and the action is, I think, really suited for VR. It's not open world action, which I know a lot of people were wanting and maybe concerned about, but it's this circle strafe actions where you have your bow or a slingshot, you're changing between arrows, and you're fighting these giant mechanical beasts that look incredibly awesome in VR scale. So you're circling around, maybe 3 or 4 of these robots are coming at you, and you're using your strafing to dodge their attacks and your weapons to target their specific armor parts. So location damage on all the enemies, which end up being really fun and pretty challenging as well. I don't think it pushes the limits of the kind of tension and immersion that VR can really bring. So it does hold your hand a little bit, and it's pretty welcoming, I think, for new VR users. But in terms of visual fidelity and scope of the game, it is well worth it, I think, as a launch title for PSVR 2. But other couple
I'll play
dozen
that
games
first.
or so are really
I
ports
guess
of
you will
games
too, right?
available already on other platforms, whether on Steam VR or in the Quest Store. And some games that were on Quest only and now have made it in a kind of a remastered mode for PSVR, yeah, they look great, but it's nothing that for someone who's already experienced VR, already has a Quest, maybe already has a Valve Index, you're not getting a lot of extra value out of adopting this new VR platform, which might be okay if Sony knows that, like with PSVR 1, they're really going for core gamers who have the console and maybe don't have an alternative VR headset. But the landscape has kind of changed since PSVR 1. A lot of people did buy the Quest 2 over the past couple holidays, and they maybe tried PSVR 1 and were okay with it. There were a couple hundred games that came out for that. So selling PSVR 2...
But you know what? Even though there are quite a few games that are like ports, I would still say like lots of people might even though they have a Quest 2, they have waited for playing these games because they wanted to experience them in the PSVR 2. So for myself, I know there are some games that I did not want to actually even try on the Quest 2 because I know it would happen on the PSVR 2, right? So I'm not like all so unhappy that it does have these ports. Yeah, but that's me.
2 to people who were VR curious might be a harder sell this time. And compared to the first PSVR's launch lineup, it does feel like there's less effort this time around in creating novel experiences unique to PSVR 2. You're not getting that free PSVR Worlds. There's no Astrobot on this system yet. And even the developers they've worked with, no one's really, because a lot are working off of ports maybe, no one's really
Astrobot is really
into
missing.
all
I totally
the
agree with
features
that.
Of
Agreed.
this headset, of the controllers,
Astrobot,
of
PSVR
that eye
2
tracking
would be
I feel
better.
like at this launch. There isn't a great showcase of that stuff outside of Call of the Mountain, which is
but
that
we have Call of the
singular
Mountain,
title, and wouldn't call it necessarily a system seller. An essential game, yes, if you have the headset, but not a game that's good enough to warrant going out and buying a PS5 in addition to spending $550 on a PSVR 2. So as we wrap things up, there are really a couple different audiences out there who may be watching this, who I have different recommendations for. If you are a PS5 owner and you don't have a VR headset, and maybe
I do have.
you didn't get PSVR 1, or maybe you did, this is going to be kind of a great mid-generation upgrade to the PS5. I mean, the PS4 and PSVR 2 had several hundred games by end of life, and it's unlikely Sony's going to come out with another VR headset for the PS5. So this is it, and getting in on this early, you're going to be able to get all the new games and follow the whole generation of PSVR.
Agreed.
All that quality of life improvements.
And the old
image
games, right?
quality,
From the Quest
tracking,
games, they
ease
will
of
be there.
setup
So
makes
yeah.
this just a leaps and bounds generational leap over that first PSVR.
Makes
Now,
sense.
if you have a VR headset, like you might have
I do
Quest
have
2,
one.
or
I do, yes.
you might be curious about moving into like a PC VR space, I'd say you
Yes,
could
I
probably
have
hold
one
off.
too.
Look at what games are announced in the coming months. Look at what games might come out toward the holiday season before thinking about buying a PS5, which are now more widely available just for the PSVR 2. And if you are a big VR enthusiast and you have all the headsets and you
I do.
are
I have all
playing
the headsets.
PC VR, I think you probably hold off as well. I mean,
Oh.
this is not a headset that's going to work
camera.
in PC VR. By all accounts, because of the way it's doing its tracking and all the proprietary technology, there's no way that someone's going to be able to reverse engineer putting this and plugging it into a PC. And so you're locked into PS5, and that money might better be spent with another PC VR headset, because there's so many other games also on that platform, on Steam VR.
Okay, for this, I haven't tried it yet, right? But I don't think I would agree to that. Like, Why would I get another PC VR headset, right? If I could get this, like if I get another PC VR headset, I can play the games that I already have again, but I cannot play GT7. I cannot play Resident Evil 8. Okay, I'm not going to do it. And I cannot play Horizon Call of the Mountain. And I don't have those triggers. I don't have this force feedback in the triggers. So why would I not buy the PlayStation VR 2 and instead buy another PC VR headset? So for that part, dear Norm, I completely don't agree with you. But that's fine. Let's keep on watching.
So really, it does come down to those games and experiences. And GT7, Resident Evil Village, maybe going forward, Sony instructs developers to make their flat screen games with VR in mind for VR ports. If that becomes a trend, then I could absolutely see this taking off. But the thing that has made consoles so strong over the past couple of decades compared to maybe a PC option are the exclusives, are the unique experiences that are allowed by those consoles. And at launch right now, there are just not enough of those, I think. I think the hardware is solid and it's great. I've been having a great time with it, and the ease of setup is amazing. But I'm still waiting for those games. Come on, Astrobot, where are you? I need you in PSVR 2. But thank you so much for watching. If you have questions about the headset, please post them in the comments below. But I will see you next time. Bye.
Okay. All right. So he's missing the games. Of course, we need more games. There's no question to it, right? So yes, I also want Astrobot. But I'm so stoked about those games that are actually out there right now, right? I can't wait to play Horizon Call of the Mountain, for example. So I can't wait to experience GT7 in VR in this PSVR 2, right? So yeah, well, let's see for myself. Anyways, that is everything. That's all the reviews that I'm watching today with you. So thanks so much for watching this. Overall, like to summarize it all up, it seems like everyone really likes the hardware a lot. Most of them are really, really positive and actually love the hardware. And in terms of visuals, it seems like, yes, it is not like unbelievably amazing, but overall it's very positive. Like the colors have been really pointed out that they are great. The brightness has been pointed out by all of them to be really good, like a really, really high brightness. And also the FOV seems to be a bit better than what we've seen before. So that is a good thing. They've also pointed out that in terms of the lenses, could be better, obviously, right? So it seems to have quite a little, not huge sweet spot, but they all say it's fine because once you're dialed in the headset, it seems to stay on your head in a pretty stable way. So that seems to be not a big problem at all. Yeah, then in terms of the headphones, right? Those in-ear headphones, also overall, it has been more positive than negative. It doesn't seem to be a problem for most of them, and some even like them, and you still get 3D audio. So I believe that for me, this is going to be the solution because I don't normally do like two headsets at the same time, which I find a bit cumbersome, right? So having those in-ear headphones directly there, it should be absolutely fine. That's what I'm looking forward to. Then in terms of the controllers, most of them really like them. You know, I'm looking forward to those force feedback triggers, and most of them loved it. So Norm from Tested said that he didn't feel it as much as he felt it with the DualSense controller of the PS5, but he also said like probably the developers didn't really use the full potential. We'll see about that. So tracking seems to be fine. Doesn't seem to be just as good as Quest 2 yet at this moment in time, but in my opinion, that is something that can be done in software, and probably Sony simply doesn't have all the data yet to make it as good as Quest 2. So that's something that we have to observe. Yeah, in terms of battery life, though, for the controllers, it seems that only 4 to 5 hours of battery life you're gonna get. That's the takeaway from all the reviews there so far, and that is definitely something. Well, that could be better, but I get it. Well, there's lots of things going on, right? With the HD kind of rumble and the force feedback, it will simply wear down the battery sooner. Makes sense. But 4 to 5 hours is still in the acceptable range, right? If it was 2 hours, then I would say, like, okay, this sucks. But 4 to 5 hours, yes. Most of the gameplay sessions are within 4 to 5 hours, right? So that is a definitely not a big problem. Yep. Then yeah, in terms of the lineup, in terms of the launch lineup, I really think there's a lot for everyone. Absolutely. Like if you're new to VR, if this is going to be your first VR headset, there's so much to play. Obviously, the games that we VR enthusiasts are excited about because we haven't played them, right? Like Horizon and so on and so forth. But also the classic games, right? That newcomers have not played yet. Pistol Whip, for example, and Star Wars: Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, right? So games that we have played already, but they're going to play for the first time. So I really would say that this is a solid lineup, especially for those who are new to VR. And again, from all the reviews that we've watched today, I really do think that the GameSpot one was the weakest one, where we have the person. Sorry if you watch this, and I really don't want to talk bad about you. It just seems like he's like burned out, like VR burned out, and he's like, there's nothing new, right? So no, if you're new, you're gonna find lots of games, and you will be kept busy. That's for sure. And for us VR enthusiasts, again, I do think we will have lots on our hands with GD7 and with Horizon Call of the Mountain, and then yeah, also with Resident Evil Village that I will also look into, and then new games like Switchback and Firewall that we can play forever, right? We can play forever. So yeah, I'm positive. I'm positive about it, and I'm very very excited about getting the PlayStation VR 2 next week. And obviously, I will keep you updated about my thoughts. I will live stream. I will give you my hands on. I will unbox it, even though you've already seen what's in the box, right? But well, you're going to see what I think of the hardware. So if you have not yet subscribed to MRTV, you should absolutely do that now and click on the bell button so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos about the PlayStation VR 2. And we will extensively cover PlayStation VR 2 here on the channel. So I really hope that you enjoyed this PSVR 2 review marathon. It's 2.5 hours of watching PSVR 2 reviews. I hope that this could help you with your anticipation, could keep you busy in the time that we don't have the hardware yet. And if you enjoyed that 2.5 hours marathon session with me, then give it a thumbs up. And absolutely don't forget to also leave a comment in the comment section right now, because that will help the YouTube algorithm to figure out that you like me watching other people's reviews and that other people should probably also watch this. So do leave your comment down in the comment section. And again, I hope that you enjoy this channel and do subscribe to it. That is everything that I got now for this video. And yeah, you're going to get lots of content for the PSVR 2. I have the Pimax crystal, actually, one room next to me here. You know what? Why don't I get it here for a moment? Why don't I get it for a moment here? Yeah, this is very, very spontaneous. But why not, right? So here it is. You're going to see lots of this here as well here on the channel soon. This is the Pimax Crystal. I'm really happy that I have it right now. This is super high-end PC VR headset. And yeah, you're going to see a lot. It has clear aspheric lenses, not Fresnel. So therefore you won't have God rays and stuff. And wow, yeah, that's what I can tell you already. Like yes. So I'm looking forward to give you lots of content about the Pimax Crystal here as well. Yes. So that's a very, very little sneak preview that I got here for you. I've already unboxed it, and you can watch my unboxing on my Patreon channel. So if you love my content and if you want to support this channel, you can actually go to the Patreon channel, mrtvelite.com, and see my unboxing of the Pimax Crystal. Okay, but that is everything now that I got for this PSVR 2 review marathon. Do leave the thumbs up and do leave the comment. I want to read from you. And I'm so looking forward to see you on the channel here and on the next episode. Until then, bye-bye.